Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're calling this meeting to order. It is 5:30 on Tuesday, October the 29th. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Appointee for District 2, Chairman Roque Vela Jr.
Present.
Appointee for District 3, Secretary Arturo Dominguez.
Here.
Appointee for District 3, Mayra Hernandez. Not present. Appointee for District 4, Vice Chairman Juan Narvaez.
Present.
Appointee for District 6, Gerald Schrebel.
Present.
Appointee for District 7, Bill Young. Not present. And appointee for the mayor, Mr. Jerry Maldonado.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you do have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. It's not on the agenda, but I'd like to call for a pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can I entertain a motion to not dismiss, I'm sorry, but
Forward.
excuse, yes, thank you, for excuse the absentee
Motion to
commissioners.
excuse those members are not present.
There's a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. Public comments. Do we have any public comments in the audience? No public comments. Okay, moving over to item number 4, approval of minutes for the regular meeting of October 10th, 2004.
Motion to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. Okay, moving on. Is there a 1 or 2? Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to move presentation number 9 to number 5, I'm sorry.
Okay, there's a motion to move the presentation by Department of Transportation TxDOT as it relates to Farm to Market Road 1472 with possible action and any other matters. Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. Okay. TxDOT.
Good afternoon, committee members. Roberto Rodriguez, Director of Transportation Planning and Development with the Department of Transportation.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation. And what I'm going to talk about is we actually, I wasn't very aware of what is it that exactly you want to hear on 1472, but I want to cover about the first stakeholder meeting we had October 15 at the Embassy Suites. This was for the feasibility study that we're preparing for 1472. Now, you might ask why we're back again on the drawing board. I mean, we had a project before. We had something that TxDOT was developing, but it was a project we called the Super Streets intersections. You know, when we were converting the Killam and Boulevard, instead of not allowing left-turn lanes, but having to do some kind of a racetrack mechanism for alleviate the congestion in that area. So when we realized, you know, we needed to make it a wider study, you know, extend this project limits. Also the construction cost of the project, you know, when the skyrocket after COVID. We started with a $7 million project that eventually became at 11 and then $12 million project. And then it went up to 30-something million just to fix Killam and I-69 intersections. That's when we decided to put a stop with that and say, okay, no, we need to do a better use of those funds, you know. Let's rethink about it. At the same time, you know, the numbers that we had projected for the growth pre-COVID and during COVID were not correct. You know, once we started keeping track of the growth, you know, in that area, the numbers increased drastically. So we say, you know what? At the end, you know, the study proved that what we had today, if we invest those 30-something million dollars, we're going to be at the same or worse situation in 5 years, based on the growth that we had. So we decided to put a stop to that. Some of the studies, I'm not going to go through that. You know, that had gone through 1472 since 2016. Started with oversized, overweight. Some studies by TTI, by the RMA, and by TxDOT, you know, that we did all the way to 2022. So we're doing 2 studies. One is from Interstate 69, excuse me, or Loop 20 that we know it, about 2 miles north of 3338. And then the other segment is 2 miles north of 3338 to 255. Why is it that we decide to break this into two portions or 2 parts? Is that We know the northern portion to 255, it's a lot more simpler. You got a 4-lane divided highway when you can easily accommodate overpasses and make it a full freeway. From 3338 south, that's where the challenges come up. You know, we have limited right of way, a lot more utilities to relocate, and some other challenges, you know, a lot of more access management issues to be concerned of. So this is the feasibility team, and we had the consultants and tech civil engineers that are doing the study for TxDOT. I'll recover the limits. You know, we broke it out into segments. Now, what's a feasibility study, and why we use a feasibility study, and what are the benefits? You know, so this is the feasibility study. We're going to be looking at a high-level planning stage. We're going to consider the environmental, community, social, and economic conditions, and it just kind of identifies the purpose. Why is we need to engage all the stakeholders in the planning process, develop potential alternatives, identify the recommended alternative to expedite the design, encourage cost-efficient and effective solutions, and what are the benefits, you know, that is going to give us the best solutions that we have, and we can develop and avoid duplicating any efforts. So who participate, of course, TxDOT, stakeholders, and the public on this kind of feasibility study. That's where we are right now. We kind of went back to the stage of feasibility. From there, we move on to schematic and environmental plans, develop the plans, do right-of-way acquisition, construction, and open the road. In the feasibility study, we go through different alternatives. Well, you see, it's a universal. It's all the alternatives that we go. Then we go to conceptual, and then we develop some viable solutions to come up with the final one, which is a recommended. And the recommended, we're pretty much going to be like a 30% already a schematic design. This is just some existing, and I'm sure you're more than aware, you know, the accidents on Mines Road. Total accidents, it's 1,293 from 2019 to 23. And we can tell, you know, by the colors how as you move up north, the number of accidents are reduced. The truck accidents, 60% of those involve involve a truck. And actually the peak time is between 2 and 6 p.m. That's 47% of the crashes. What you see right here on this one is that about 20% of those crashes occur at Killam. You know, there's one fatal, 2 severe crashes, and 22. And what you see at the blue bar right there, it's 200. That's about the state average, 242 crashes per 100 million vehicles miles traveled. And you can tell how the Killam Industrial Boulevard, Pan American, they're past that average. The existing data, as you can tell, you know, as you get closer to I-69, the numbers are a lot higher, and for example, 42,300, you know, vehicles. And then as you move up, you know, the vehicles goes down, but the truck percentage goes higher. You know, of course, there's more trucks driving towards 255 than by percentage, you know, than what is it closer to 69. Oops, go back. So what are the feasibility studies? It studies all the needs, you know, connectivity, safety, capacity, and mobility. So we heard from you before. You know, I know maybe some of you all participated in what we used to call the 1472 task force. You know, we had very, very good meetings back then. You know, we came out with a lot of solutions for the less than 5 years. You know, improve connectivity. Let's build, let's say, Highway 84. Let's look at by CEO. We talked about the River Road, at the right turn lane, you know, on Mines Road, and from I-69. Do some intersection improvements, which we actually just completed one on the Killam at 1472. Provide additional access to the Waltree Bridge. And then we came up with some mid and long term, you know. Of course, our long term is to build a freeway from 69 to 255, doing the different overpasses at the available location, you know, such as a Char, by CEO, FN 3338. We looked at long range about widen 3338, you know, over there, but it's called Las Tiendas Road. And some of these things have already been implemented. For example, the closing of the ramp at I-69 that we had as a midterm. So some of these were things that we had already listened to and heard from the committee before. Some of the ongoing projects that you may be aware, of course, we have the River Road study, you know, that the RMA, it's doing through the consultants. We already led State Highway 84, which is what you see in pink. That's already under construction. We got under the plans 3338, additional capacity. Actually, the RMA, you know, also as part of the study, they proposed the extension of Saddle Road The city with the RMA is taking out by Seager Road to construction. And then we recently added an extra lane on 1472 from close to us, from 69 to about Kilam, when we added that turning lane in the project. As I mentioned, we had the universe when we come up with all the ideas. That was our first stakeholder meeting. We're gonna have a second one when we're gonna be already presenting some conceptuals. That's some of the main ideas. And then we're gonna go to the stakeholder meeting number 3 with some viable solutions, and then we're gonna present the recommended one. So this is where we are right now at the fall 2022. We're hopefully, we're gonna move on probably by the summer of 2025, we're gonna come up with something. The consultant, it's aware, and we're kind of crushing all these meetings and working with all the alternatives and moving fast, because we know we need to get something out there quickly. The contact, that's our PM is Arena Munoz, but myself also as the director, we'll see all these things. And I'm open now for any questions or comments on anything on 1472, or if you just want to talk the feasibility.
Questions? Mr. Schwebel?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. First of all, glad to serve on this committee. I'm glad to see fellow committee members, Arturo Dominguez, Jerry Maldonado, and of course, both of you as well as former council members. In full disclosure, I'd like you all to know that I work very closely with TxDOT in my capacity in several boards. I serve on the Texas Freight Mobility Committee, which addresses freight mobility throughout the state of Texas. I also serve on the Board of Trade Advisory Committee, which addresses the Texas-Mexico Master Transportation Plan on the planning side. In full disclosure, I also serve with the Texas Transportation Institute, which part of the study that's being conducted together with TxDOT as well. So our role in planning at the state level, I hope to contribute to the local level as well in my community, because we are working together with I-69. I also serve on I-69 board and I-27 board. And the idea here is that the public to be aware that there are committee members here that are engaged every day, and we hope to come up with some sound ideas and recommendations. I will say that for TxDOT, and I don't speak on behalf of TxDOT, but I work very closely with them, stakeholder input is critical. Everyone in the community has a say, and any meeting that involves infrastructure for highway connectivity, stakeholder input is requested over and over again. So it's up to the citizens of this community to be engaged, involved in the proper planning, and I look forward to working with you all as well and coming up with some sound ideas or recommendations. This is what the city requests.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Schwebel, and I think agreed on all points, and I think we're all thankful and comfortable with having somebody that's as invested as you are in transportation, not just in our city, but throughout our state and of course, our country. So thank you for your comments and your input. Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question on Mines Road, because it's very important, it's as important as IH-35, but what are we looking for in the future when it comes to Mines Road? Because, we've done a little bit of changes without, not big monies, but that River Road will help the Mines Road. And yes, we conducted an alignment. We did several alignments. I think the price is like $150 million. And my question is, how is that going to get funded? Is it just a study and that's it? Or?
Okay, well, the RMA took the lead to do the study on the River Road. That's a what we call off-system or local project. So TxDOT has no participation on the River Road project.
Nothing.
No. We're working on 1472. We do have, and I can list some of the other stuff we're doing on 1472 right now. But our goal is to actually bring 1472 to a freeway capacity, something like you see on 35, that we can have main lanes, overpasses, and access roads. That'll be the ultimate goal.
And how does that happen? Does that happen in the legislation, or is it TxDOT, or who changes the?
Well, there's actually, that's the reason we have these two consultants. Like I said, the consultant from 3338 North, he's already working on the schematic. He knows how we can fit it in. Actually I had a meeting with them recently. I think they were talking just adding like 60 feet or 80 feet of right of way, and we can fit a full freeway through that segment. The challenges are from 3338 or Las Tiendas Road towards the bridge. And we just had a meeting, actually, Mr. Nick Alanis from Entech with the company that is doing the study, he's here with us. We actually had a meeting a few hours ago with one of his PMs that is leading this project. And we look at different already alternatives. And it's, how are we gonna connect that freeway to I-69? There gotta be something in the middle. We think, I mean, they presented about 3 or 4 alternatives, elevated alternatives, because I think that's gonna be something we're very closely looking into that. Or the other alternative is having to buy the all additional right of way and possibly a few warehouses and gas stations. So but that's our goal right now for Mines Road. So the consultants, one of them is ahead, the other one it's working on it. Now, how do we get there? Of course, we know that the commissioners in Texas, they're very well. 1472, they know is number 2 roadway, the one of the number 2 out of the 100 most congested roads in Texas for trucks. They know what's happening in Laredo. I mean, Mr. Schwell has been communicated all the time to the commissioners and everybody here from the city. Hey, this is what's happening. But we know we're not going to get all the money to build everything in one phase. So what we're doing after we get this schematics and these designs, we're going to break it up in segment. And so that way we can go to Texas commissioners and say, look, we need 100 million here, 200 million here, another 150. This is the local participation part. This is the city, counties, MPO, RMA. We need to fill in these gaps, in funding. And we can do it in segments. So we're going to eventually develop a game plan, how to get there. I cannot, like I said, guarantee it's going to be one at once, everything at once, but it's going to be in phases.
I understand. And the last question is synchronizing those, the lights on Mines Road, because I think that's a big factor when it comes to congestion. I think
Correct.
that's been an issue.
Correct.
And I think Mines Road should be given preference as well.
That's right. Actually, just to kind of mention, the city of Laredo is responsible for the management and handling these traffic signals, but of course, being a state system, we help out with all the synchronization. We did a study maybe about 5 years ago when they went back and synchronized all the lights. But at that time, we hadn't closed that I-69 entrance. We hadn't done some other improvements. So, but a couple of months, Texas hired Alliance Transportation Group. We did a work authorization with them to re-synchronize 1472. And we're adding some of the new traffic signals that are coming up. And we just, we're hoping by December they should come up with a plan. We asked them to present it at the MPO. What is the plan, in 1472 with the synchronization, of the lights. So there's some other things happening on Mines Road. One of them is we've been looking at the oversized overweight corridor, being 1472, 255, 3338. We're gonna start working with the city on setting up the weight in motion scales for Wall Street Bridge. I know in Columbia Bridge, we have the border safety inspection facility, but in Wall Street Bridge, there is no weight in motion scales, to charge the trucks that come from Mexico oversized overweight. So we're gonna be working closely with the city and how we can fund the installation of these scales on the bridge. Have the city help us with administrating and collecting the fees. They collect a percentage, they keep a percentage of those fees, and the rest of it is used for maintenance on the roadways, such as Mines Road. We also working with TTI. We asked TTI, Texas Transportation Institute, to help us in a mechanism of how to notify the users when the bridge is down. What's happening in that area. Sometimes the bridge goes down. You all know the story. Got the queues, traffic everywhere. So we asked TTI, they can help us develop a system for the city to notify the people when the system is down. We working actually with planning, have tried to work with planning on some of the planning and zoning criteria, for industrial park. Because they usually come to us when they connect to Mines Road. But what happened inside the facility, that interconnectivity, things like that, the street width, right-of-way designation, setbacks on the properties, for future growth. So we've been trying to get that with the city, also working with planning. Just to let you know, we did a study recently also where we're gonna go back and close some of those crossovers. We have a lot of crossovers in 1472 that are causing some accidents. So we're now going back to having to close some of those. We'll be doing some public announcements and meetings, with the people, with the affected property owners, let them know, hey, we're gonna come back, close this crossover, so, kind of help out with that.
So I have a question, just so we can kind of, rein this back in. Number one, you've stated that you had some grade separations planned, and I wanted to ask the question, how realistic is that? And you've said there's already a plan for that. And I think the reason why we asked you to come here is obviously we've been tasked with, coming up with a plan, presenting to city council as to how much money, to go after for public infrastructure. So my question is, making 1472 an interstate, and this is a moving target, obviously, but how much money are we looking at to make that a reality? And on top of that, obviously, the lion's share of this money comes from the MPO. That's obvious. But there's also local participation by the city. How much money would that require that the city would have to come up with to be able to make that a reality? Now, I'm just ballparks. Obviously, it's a moving target, and whatever the price tag is now is going to be different 5, 6, 7 years. But right now,
Yeah,
what's that number?
Most of this project are mainly developed by Texas, but not by themselves. We need the cooperation usually from the city, from the county, the RMA. The MPO, I can tell you, and I guess I'll leave that to Juan. Their funding, Category 7 has been allocated for HR, for Mangana High on the south, Laredo.
But let's focus on 1472.
Yeah.
1472, how much?
Now, on 1472, I really don't have a number how much it will cost to bring it to a freeway, but I can tell it will be over $1 billion.
$1 billion?
Yes.
That's and I think, you know what? I think that might be a little low, to be honest.
So,
Because there's a lot of working right of way that's there. You're gonna have to buy a bunch of land. People own that. It's not gonna come cheap. The grade separations are very expensive right now. I think that's probably a realistic and
Correct.
an over/under number, to be quite honest with you.
Now, what also got to consider, the city will have to participate, obviously, utility relocations. That's going to add up quite a bit of cost, to the project. Maybe possibly right away, a percentage, that the city will have to pay.
So let me ask a question real quick, and again, I don't know if you have the answer to this, Mr. Chavez. What does is the city prepared in any way? Is there a plan to come up with that participation here in the near future? And also, is there a way for this committee to be able to stand up, if not, and I think I know the answer to my question, if not, then is there a way this committee can possibly send a plan towards city council, say, hey, we're okay with selling this much in bonds? Because I think we can all understand how important 1472 is. We gotta get it fixed, and it's gonna cost money. How can this committee help?
Yeah, good evening, Chairman and members of the committee. Ramon Chavez, City Engineer. We don't currently have any plan, to be honest with you. But that could be part of the message, perhaps, that could be sent as part of the recommendations, and see how that could, I guess, somehow be taken to the voters, and then after that, then funded eventually.
So usually the local participation is 10%?
On the
Correct.
right-of-way acquisition, yes.
So,
Sometimes about
100 mil.
10%.
Commissioner Schwebel?
I think it'd be good, Mr. Chairman, I think for all the committee, is to perhaps, ask TxDOT to make a presentation on the process and how you take a farm-to-market road to the next level, because there is a process. You can't jump, you've got it, and I come across this quite a bit throughout the state, is that the demand or the volume doesn't dictate what the classification of the road is going to be. So that's why they conduct these feasibility studies. The challenge that we have with the feasibility studies is that sometimes they're very limited. And that's why the stakeholder input and the local input becomes very critical. That when they ask for a feasibility study to be conducted like we're doing, for example, right now, sometimes it's done in tranches versus, hey, give me a whole feasibility study from here to here. And that input is sometimes what is lacking. And in addition to that, it's not just the physical infrastructure, but sometimes there's a balance between mobility and as part of the formula, that when you do the planning of the infrastructure, you also plan for the type of mobility when you're mixing cars and trucks. Number two is that there's a budget. There's a budget. It starts at the local level and goes all the way to the state. I've always argued before TxDOT that we measured we measure our volume based on our input, our gasoline tax. We all know how that money comes back. But that's what we have to work in partnership with our state representatives and our senator, and all the way up and going to TxDOT, going to Austin, and say, this is what we need. And I hope that through this committee, you know, we can work together as we get we get a local understanding, what is it that we can best recommend the plan to be, so that we go as a united front to say, okay, we're 1472, we know what the challenges are, Austin knows the volume of traffic, and we need to now, you know, do this. State highway, US highway standards, because it just doesn't jump from one to the other. And we'd like for it to be, but the money's not gonna be there. And I speak to you out of experience. So I think, an understanding, and I think there's a general lack of understanding of knowing, first of all, it's Mines Road, but it's a farm to market road. It's basically, it's the first type of, you know, other than a county road.
Yeah.
It's a first, and we haven't changed that. We should be working at designation of it, and based on a number of factors.
Agreed. Thank you, Commissioner Swobel. Agreed, Commissioner no.
I have a question, and you made a comment on the overweight. What is the intention there? I operate a trucking company, and our trailer's a 5-axle trailer. The weight limit across the United States is 80,000 pounds, right? There's DOT physically already inside World Trade Bridge that inspects trucks at random. Is there an estimate of the amount of trucks you think come in with overweight? I can, you know, I don't have a customer. I ship 11,000 loads a year northbound, and probably one time we get a trailer that is over 80,000 pounds, and it's clearly a mistake. It's not something that the customer does on purpose, because I have a scale also in my terminal, and my drivers have to scale before they leave, right? And I'm not gonna drive out of Laredo with an overweight trailer. That's illegal. You know, undivisible merchandise, of course. And my question is, because, you know, what would be the cost to put these scales up there, and what's the benefit of it, respectfully? Like, is it gonna cost, you know, what amount of money, and what are we trying to accomplish here? DPS is also out there on Mines Road doing their random inspections. I mean, I believe you know, people need to follow the law, but making an expense like that, you know, what's the cost benefit to it? That would be my question.
Actually, the city had at one time, and I don't know if you might remember, Ramon, the estimate of installing this, putting in motion scales. At one time, there was a price maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, but it didn't follow through. Now, there's trucks that actually, they're willing to pay, you know, to come oversized, overweight. And they do it, you know, they come through right now because they carry some kind of equipment.
Oh, I move over a dimension of freight. I do, and I can get permits and everything. Yes,
Correct.
I do
right
that
now,
also.
there's not a mechanism for the state nor the city to collect any fees on those coming. There is right now, if you go from the U.S. to Mexico, you actually get your permit and you pay the city, and you take it across and you go through the bridge. But there's nothing on the other side coming northbound, and that's the traffic we're trying to capture. You know, the traffic that is coming out with on purpose. I mean, having oversized, overweight. They're bringing the stuff from Mexico, but they don't need to get a permit.
We get a state permit because I'm on FM 1472 and I'm on 35 or Loop 20.
So right now, the way those permits are collected is not from the local.
Of course, no, it's a state permit. I'm stepping on state roads. I'm not driving into the town. The only reason we have to get a city permit going south is because the city made an ordinance that requires us to do that, and we have to present that when we're traveling south into Mexico at the toll booth. But when we're bringing over dimensional loads out of Mexico through World Trade Bridge or Colombia, I'm stepping on state roads. So I do get a state permit.
Correct.
Respectfully, I don't get a city permit because I'm coming in to the United States. So that's our logic.
Yeah, well, there's what they have. Again, this is not something that is coming out just from the Laredo district. This is something that is statewide, just like they did in FAR, and they're kind of moving towards Laredo now. They saw the need, you know, enforcing this, because apparently there was a lot of oversized, overweight the cargo, you know, coming from Mexico, and that's what they're trying to monitor. Now, as far as the cost, I can get you that. I can go back and maybe search some of my files on that.
I think it's $120 per permit.
No, 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 I
No,
think
for
he
the
mean,
cost of
the
installing
scale,
the
so,
equipment.
so it's an enforcement issue,
Yes.
so it's an
Yeah, and
enforcement
actually,
issue.
it came from, it started from the DPS, from in Austin, you know, it started, came to TxDOT and now it came to us.
I think the way something like this would work, because you are right, you're on a state-owned, thoroughfare. I think the way something like this works is the representative presents a bill that basically works together with the city, which allows the city to be able to sell.
Yeah,
put the
yeah,
such
that's
something
right.
So
like this up.
That's the
basically,
next.
making us trucking companies pay twice for the same thing, which
Yeah.
doesn't sound very, yeah, because I have to get a state permit. I'm on a state road, and then basically it's telling me, oh, well, you're leaving, you're crossing the bridge and you're in the city of Laredo vicinity, so you need to pay another permit. So that
Actually,
doesn't make us
those-
very,
I don't know, there has been some discussions. No, I know, DPS has been involved in these conversations, and there's been people from or one of the divisions in Austin, and they actually looking at how the permit is gonna be. Is that gonna depend what industrial park you're going to? Are you gonna drive 35 and then other roads, or are you just gonna go to Killam Industrial Park or Interamerica? So they're still working on the details, because that cost is gonna include all the way to your location.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Go ahead,
Schwab,
go
you
ahead.
So the bill identifies the roads that you're gonna take.
Correct.
That bill that you
Yeah.
talked about, the overweight,
the permit says clearly.
it's already there
There's
in
a
the
route.
bill.
Yeah, and
And
there's a
it
bill
tells
there.
you what roads you're gonna touch, and those are the ones that have to pay overweight.
The only thing that will be pending, you know, once this is implemented, it's a minute order by the Texas commissioners to say, now this is the percentage that will be paid to the city, this is the percentage that Texas will keep, where is this money going to and all.
So we deliver
that's within
over dimensional loads all over Texas, and I'll use Texas as an example. And if we drive into Zapata and go into a local place to deliver a load, our state permit clearly states what roads within Zapata we use, or within San Antonio. Here, this is a way, again, it's not you, it's the city wanting to charge us an additional fee for using a city road, which, again, we are already paying the state to move our loads within the state. The city roads are within the state of Texas. My state permit, when I buy a state permit to come in from Iowa to Laredo, and if I gotta go to Killam to deliver it at a warehouse, it clearly states my final destination. And it tells the driver which route, which way to get there. And it's there because the state sees it as a road, that's your final destination, that's where you're going, so.
And like I mentioned, we're in the early process, we just had conversations with the city management, about this issue. And, we'll be more than welcome, to invite
Yeah,
some of those
no,
meetings.
thank
And
you.
you can bring, hey, how you all gonna avoid that I'm gonna double pay, or how are you gonna look into all this other,
Mr.
details?
Chavez?
Yes, if I could just make a comment, Mr. Chairman, going back to Commissioner Strobel's discussion. Part of that process and working with TxDOT projects and some of those initial steps are environmental clearance, utility relocations, and right-of-way acquisition. So those three, I'm sure that TxDOT will agree, are most of the time part of the participation or the requirements that the city will contribute to that. So those are some of the initial steps.
And just to add something else, I know we talked about a freeway, that's kind of our long-range plan, what we'd like to see at the ultimate. But they can be, we can work with the city to come, there's some short, maybe, projects, short-term and mid-term, that can help improve the flow, just like the synchronization project, that TxDOT has. That's something that can happen. There might be some other projects, medium range, projects.
Yes.
5 to 10 years that can help
Commissioner
out.
Schwab?
Just for clarification and information for the public. The farm to market road weight capacity is what, 52,000?
I'm
50, maybe look at the signs on 1472, if you read it, and Jerry, you might correct me if I'm wrong, it's little over 52,000. So basically, anybody that's above that amount that traverses on 1472 will technically be overweight and should have some kind of an overweight or oversized permit, whether it's a state permit or if it's a local permit. And I think it's important that we understand clearly what the differences are going to be there between a farm to market road, which is Pines Road, and what type of traffic is going to be on that.
Right now, as per the bill that was passed in the legislature, and I know 1472 is an oversight, so we cannot limit the weight, in that one. They have to get the proper permits.
That's correct. That's why now comes the element of designating a corridor as an overweighted and oversized, just like you designated a hazardous corridor. Those are the things that we all need to be
Gotcha.
cognizant of.
Gotcha. Understood. So one of my best attributes and one of my worst attributes is being a little impatient, and I've gotten much better with age, by the way. But I like to just kind of try to stay on track, and I know there's going to be constant. We're going to veer off in different directions because we have people that are important too, and we have an opportunity to be able to talk to somebody from TechStop. But I want to remind the committee we're here to put a plan of action, a suggestion, if you will, to City Council. This is how much we suggest you sell for this, this, and this, and time is of the essence. So, to your point, it's not going to happen all overnight, Mr. Schwebel, and it has to be piecemeal, just by the way it's set up with everybody, with all the different businesses and residents and trucks that drive through there. We can't shut it down. It's not realistic. It's going to have to happen over time, over a long period of time. At the same time, money is always an issue. It's always going to be an issue. It's an issue now. It'll be an issue 5 years from now. It'll be an issue 20 years from now. So this is we have a unique opportunity. The city does to be able to present something to the public that we think they will support. I think right now with the way things are, some citizens probably won't support anything. But that being said, anybody that has spent any significant time in Laredo understands how important 1472 is and how dire the need is there. So we put something on the ballot specifically for 1472. I would venture to say more than likely is going to pass, so that the city can be ready when that plan is to be able to invest whatever amount of money that is. So as a chairman, I can't make motions, but I would like to entertain, and mind you, we're going to go over all of this at the end. And if somebody does put a motion, follow my recommendation for a motion, we're going to revisit it again, and we'll come back and we'll all agree as a committee what the final presentation is. But I do want to start the process or setting that direction, if you will, of this committee of how to go about this. And I'd like to take action and then afterwards circle back around and put something together that the entire committee is going to be comfortable with. So I'd like to entertain a motion.
Sure, if a motion is in place, I'd recommend that for a future meeting, the next meeting perhaps, ask for a presentation, not just of the process, but I would consider also, like to see us do also, since we are looking at a period of time, maybe I get a clear understanding what developments are happening in the next 5 years. You know, because when you just throw a number, one thing is to do what you're doing today, but also we're talking about the future. So my motion would be that we, number one, get additional information of understanding the process, and number two, include there any future developments, at least for the next 5 years, to see what potential growth is anticipated on 1472.
Specifically 1472.
1472.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
All against? Motion passes. Thank you again for your time, and I think the message is trying to zone in more as to what the plan is, and hopefully have a more we can zero in on a number that we can potentially present to the city
We'll
council.
work towards that.
That's the objective.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to excuse myself because I got an emergency,
Okay.
so I'm gonna be taking off.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Narvaez has to be excused.
It's an emergency.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item number 5, presentation by the Laredo and Webb County Area Metropolitan Planning Organization with possible action at any matters incident thereto.
Hello, good evening. Go ahead and open the presentation. All right, good evening. My name is Juan Mendive. I'm the director for the Laredo Webb County Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, also known as LW Campo, or just MPO for short. It's nice seeing a few familiar faces here. I also know that some of you have served on the MPO before, correct? Yes. So you might have some knowledge, but I will give a brief overview of the MPO. It's just an agenda. I'll try not to take too long through the slides. I'll probably just run through some of them being that your purpose is, right, to find projects to recommend to council. So just quick background on the MPO, or Metropolitan Transportation Plan. I'll talk about some forecasts, proposed future off-system projects. That's probably where y'all are, may want to spend more time on. Federal funding and program projects. And also, if there's any questions during my presentation, feel free to ask me. And I'm also, I'll be happy to come back and give anything in more detail if you'd like me to. So just a quick overview of the MPO functions. What do we do? Well, we make sure that we provide the comprehensive, cooperative, and continuing regional transportation planning for the urbanized area with populations of 50,000 or more. So like in our case, in Laredo, we facilitate the 3C planning process, establishing a means for local governments to have input on how federal investments are made within their communities. The LW Campo is the MPO for the Laredo urbanized area. This is a map showing the boundary. So our limits do extend beyond the city limits. At minimum, the boundary needs to encompass the entire existing urbanized area, plus the contiguous area expected to become urbanized within 20 years. So right now this boundary does cover that. Right now we're exploring expanding this boundary a little further south, further north, and it covers the city of Laredo, city of Rio Bravo, and portions of Webb County. Just real quick, so you all are familiar with our governance structure. We're governed by the MPO Policy Committee, right? So right now, our bylaws were amended in 2023 to allow the chairperson and the vice chairperson to rotate every 2 years between the city of Laredo mayor and the Webb County judge. This is kind of for us to take more of a regional approach to how we function as an MPO. Currently, the chairperson is Webb County Judge Stano Tijirina through the end of 2024. And the mayor, Dr. Victor Di Trevino, is currently serves as the vice chairperson, and he'll become the chairperson in January 2025. We also have a technical committee that provides recommendations to our policy committee, and an active transportation committee that monitors an active transportation plan that was developed a few years back. There's also projects there in terms of pedestrian, bicycle projects, and if that is something that you'd be willing to explore through this. Some core documents that we do as an MPO, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. It's a mandated document. This is a 25-year document. This is a long-range effort that we do. We're currently in the process of this. A transportation improvement program, very similar to a CIP, right? But this is a 4-year program, and anything that has federal funds is going to be in this program. It has to be fully funded for the projects to appear in our TIP. We also have a Unified Planning Work Program, which is basically just the MPO's operating budget, public participation plan that guides how we engage the public, and a congestion management process, which is an important part of what we do, is making sure that we're mitigating congestion throughout the region, but through planning efforts and working with our stakeholders to implement, those congestion management strategies. So the MPO studies that we've done to date and are going to be doing, like I mentioned, the Active Transportation Plan in 2021, and these studies, plans, these are things you could refer to. I'd be glad to share them with Ramon, so you can share them with you. There's projects in there that maybe you can look at. There's some prioritized projects as well. So you have the Active Transportation Plan from 2021. We also did a comprehensive operational analysis of El Metro 2022. The River Road study was mentioned earlier. In partnership with the Regional Mobility Authority, the MPO paid for half of this study. So it was the River Road Routes Alternative Study, came up with the best alignment for the River Road. So now, now we need to get into the next steps of, further planning and right-of-way acquisition. We're currently working on a microtransit feasibility study, and program studies for the future are the long-range freight plan to identify projects, to improve our freight network, and a South Laredo transportation planning study that's also programmed for the future. Just real quick, right now we're working on our long-range plan, like I mentioned. Again, it's a 25-year document, has to be done, updated every 5 years. And this is so we can establish a long-term transportation policy agenda for the region. Real quick, this is something that we're showing in the MTP, Metropolitan Transportation Plan, our existing population. This is by block group, so you see those darker shaded areas where you have higher concentrations of population. Our inner city has more density, of course, but here it's just showing the total population by block group. You talked a little bit about forecasts, about growth. We forecast all the way to year 2050. It's part of what we have to do as a metropolitan planning organization and in our metropolitan transportation plan. We do this using a travel demand model. So our population forecast, we did a forecast from the base year of 2018 to a forecast of 2050. This map shows you the different traffic analysis zones, and those darker shaded areas are where we're forecasting more population into 2050. We did a high growth scenario, and that high growth scenario is forecasting a population up to 489,977 by 2050. We also did a forecast for employment through that travel demand model. You see a lot of job growth again along FM 1472 in the future in 2050, those darker shaded areas, and also along I-35 here to the north. So those darker shaded areas where you do see some of that future employment. But you'll notice in the south as well, just outside our boundary, there's also some forecasted growth of employment because of the future of Bridge 45. You all know, as the freight networks, real important to Laredo, that this is something that we look at through our metropolitan transportation planning and other planning activities. Truck traffic, right, this is nothing new to you all. Those darker yellow areas here, of course, is where you have the more truck congested roadways. So this is just wanting to show you existing conditions and what we analyze through our planning efforts. Also, we also look at safety and security. And Roberto from TxDOT was showing you the crash statistics along Mines Road. This shows you a pretty much city-wide perspective, just where those hot spots for crashes and serious and fatal injuries are. So getting into the projects, these next projects I'm going to show you are just 3 projects that were identified through our current efforts in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And these are specifically off-system projects, right? So on-system are those that are maintained by the state, off-system, those local projects. A lot of projects are on-system. Again, there's a lot of projects that do not appear in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan because they're more local projects that might not get any federal funding. So these projects are specifically just a sample of projects that we're looking at. One of them is River Road, as mentioned, right? The cost estimate that we have for construction is $107,308,000, and that comes from that study that we did with the RMA. When you look at all the preliminary engineering, the right-of-way that's needed, that cost estimate is about $148 million, which is what Mr. Dominguez had mentioned earlier. So this is one road that we've identified as important, as a priority. Again, like TxDOT mentioned, this is something that would have to be funded either through some MPO funds, local funds. So this is what we're looking at right now. But again, the next step is, the planning for this. There's already an alignment identified, but now we need to, do the next things to come up with schematic, the preliminary engineering and all that. Those would be the next steps. The other project also that was identified is the Los Presidentes Road extension. So as you all know, there's Los Presidentes Road East was extended from Cuatro Vientos to Brownwood Street. This would extend from Brownwood Street to E.G. Ranch Road, and the cost estimate for this is $7.3 million. This is a project in South Laredo that would also help mobility in the area. Another project that stakeholders in the Unitech area, Mile 13, have been asking for is this extension from Union Road Drive to the future of Char Ruthinger and 35 interchange. The cost estimate for this is $11.6 million. And this project, again, it does appear in the city's thoroughfare plan, but again, it's something that does not have funding currently at the moment. So just to go over the federal funding a bit, I'm going to overlap with TxDOT a bit. They do what's called the Unified Transportation Program. It's the UTP. So the UTP is TxDOT's 10-year plan that guides transportation development across the state, and it's approved annually by the Texas Transportation Commission. TxDOT organizes funding into 12 categories, and MPOs in transportation management areas, such here in Laredo, we have discretion over Category 7 funds and Category 9 funding, which can be used for off-system projects, also on-system, as we did with the Char Ruthinger when it became on-system. But this is the bucket of money that can be used for off-system projects like Cat 7 and Cat 9. There's also Category 2 funding, and that's selected in coordination between the MPO and TxDOT, but those funds can only be used for on-system projects. So that's important, right, to mention that. And any projects that are within our MPO boundary that utilize federal funds, regardless of the funding category, must be programmed in our MPO Transportation Improvement Program. So currently, these are the projects that we've programmed with Category 7. At Char Ruthinger Road, State Highway 84, it's already gone to letting. We programmed approximately $100 million of Cat 7 dollars to that. The other project that's programmed as well is the State Loop 20 interchange at Lomas del Sur Boulevard. So that's fully funded as well. The MPO programs $7 million of Cat 7 for that. We've also put money into the Vallecillo Road project, about $17.8 million. The World Trade Bridge expansion, we also have Cat 7 monies programmed in the World Trade Bridge expansion, about 1.25 million programmed there. Mangana Hine expansion in South Laredo, which we think will be important for the future Bridge 4 or 5 project. And then we have a little bit of money, $1 million for the Outer Loop South segment right-of-way phase for the future programmed. But there's still, this is within pretty much like a 10-year window of Cat 7 funds that are available. More funds become available every time, you know, the new UTP is programmed. And then for Category 9 program projects, these are your bike and ped
I'm
projects.
sorry, can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
One question real quick. So that, for the next 10 years, all Cat 7 money has been programmed, or is there still some left?
For the next 10 years, it's pretty much all
done.
programmed.
Okay.
Yes, correct. Something that TxDOT's really big on, and our conversations with the Texas Transportation Commission, is getting projects shovel ready, right? So that shovel readiness is so important. So that's because, I mean, these monies, again, they lapse at a state level. So let's say we do have a project like we had at Char that was shovel ready. Some of that $100 million are from future years, really. So they were able to accelerate that. Maybe we have another shovel-ready project, we might be able to accelerate some future Cat 7 funds, right, beyond that 10-year window, right? And so that shovel readiness is real important.
Do you know what was the original amount of the proposal? Do you recall what the Charworthington Road project was?
40 million?
It was about, well, when I started at the MPO, it was about 56 million. And it went up to
My point to the
147.
question is that the timing of it, because these projects take time, and there's a cost involved, there's an increase involved. So what may be allocated at the original onset, by the time it's let, or it becomes, you know, the cost has already been, you know, has risen.
Yes.
So these are all factors to consider.
One of the reasons for my impatience.
Yeah, we've seen that in several projects, you know, with these cost increases across the board. Even for, like I mentioned, our Category 9 bike and ped projects, we're also seeing cost increases on these. Real quick, we're just funding a River Vega Trail, which is along from Laredo College North, along the Rio Grande, East Chacon Creek Hike and Bike Connector, a shared use path for Plum and Mier Street to connect to the schools there. We're also funding some bus shelters for El Metro and downtown safe sidewalk improvements for the downtown tax increment reinvestment zone. They applied for these funds, and we've programmed 1.2 million for that, 1.25 million. And this is just an overall view. Again, these are more long-range projects. So the big projects that I wanted to mention was, again, State Highway 84 at Charlottinger, which is now gone to letting via CO Road. Also important for that mobility from FM 1472 to I-35. So these are projects, again, that we have funds in. And then there's federal funds all along the loop, right, with all the overpasses that are happening. And those might have not come from any of the MPO categories that we have discretion over. But there's federal funds that we need to program in our transportation improvement program. There's all those along the loop. Over here on Cuatro Vientos Boulevard in the south, again, Lomas del Sur. But we've also identified Sierra Vista and Cielito Lindo, right, in partnership with TxDOT. So we also have that in our long-range plan. So hopefully we'll be able to identify funding for that to get those underway real soon. And of course, the outer loop, that's going to be important, especially like I said now with Bridge 4-5, right? The southern segments might become more important. I know that priority for TxDOT has been the connection between 59 and 359 as well. So these are things that we're looking at in our long-range plan as well. So,
What is the cost, estimated cost of that outer loop?
it's also
It doesn't exist now, right?
$1.7
yeah.
billion in 2020 dollars.
Is that correct?
In 2020.
Monies, in 2020 monies.
Yeah. So of course this is going to be phased out right into different segments. So
I would venture to say do not lock into that figure.
Yeah.
But it gives me an understanding
It's an estimate,
of where we were at or currently, just, I mean, it's not gonna get any cheaper, you know?
No, but I do have a question in regards to all of this planning, because that's one of the questions. Do you as an FPO get involved with the city's economic development in looking at grants?
yeah, we work closely with them. That's something that I've been trying to do as an MPO director. So I have a real good relationship with Ms. Castillo, the director for economic development. So we work together. We've talked about them. For River Road, for example, they've approached us before to see what they can apply for certain grants. So they've applied for a planning grant for River Road to get that started. And my understanding was they didn't get it last time, but that they were selected as one of the top projects, so they were going to be able to resubmit that again. So that was my understanding. I believe it was for the race grant.
So as you look at the UTP,
Right.
that the 10-year plan that, you just I think it's important that also we create a little bit of better understanding of what's out there beyond leveraging local, county, and other funds, because there are, under the border infrastructure law of the Biden-Harris administration, I've seen a lot of communities taking advantage of these grants.
Correct.
And I don't see much of it here in Laredo and Webb County.
Correct, and you're correct, and a big part of that is, you know, the partnerships that we need to have with the city, with the county. As an MPO, pretty much all the funding we get is federal funding, so we could apply for grants, but we need a local partner with the local funds to provide the local match. So those partnerships are important, but that's definitely right, and that's why we as an MPO, you know, do these documents as well, because maybe, you know, beyond the funding that TxDOT provides and the federal government provides, you know, through these formula funding, there's a lot of grant opportunities, especially now with the bipartisan infrastructure law.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think just as a general thought, I don't know about the other committees, but as we look at planning some of this bond referendum that's being proposed, that, I don't know if it's appropriate to send a message to staff, you know, that we should be looking at other options beyond just looking at a bond referendum that comes out of the local taxpayer, for lack of a better word, without consulting other, and looking at other communities, what's working, whether there be border communities or other communities in general, where you have access to programs such as, you know, a race grant or a tiger grant or whatever, you know, they want to qualify for or not. I think that should be kind of like a given, but I think it's got to be, you know, in some way conveyed.
Yes, good point, Commissioner Schwab. I mean, there's so many different acronyms, if you will, to be able to go out there and get money from ultimately the federal government, right? Because it all comes down from DC, and you know, it's about being more proactive and being more involved in our DC trips, I think, and having a plan laid out when you're going out there. And to your point, shovel-ready projects. I mean, that is what. It's real easy to say, to draw a line on the map and say we need money for that. No, you have to be ready. You have to present something and be ready to go. To say, hey, we need money for this, and this is why it's important. You present all our truck traffic and everything else that goes into it. So it's really, to your point, Mr. Schwab, it's about getting organized and within our city and the MPO as well, obviously, and having those projects ready, teed up, and ready to go before you start asking for grants. But I agree with Mr. Schwab. There's so many different ways for us to be able to go out there and get funding. For instance, the char route there, the first time we had it funded in 2014, we had a SIB loan. It was going to cost, you know, zero. Shouldn't say zero money, because we were basically leveraging our future property taxes along that thoroughfare that we're borrowing from that to be able to put it. But look at how much money it would have saved. You know, it would have saved, you know, $60 million, $50 million had we been aggressive with something, with a type of funding mechanism like that. So just different creative ways to be able to go after this money to make sure we get these projects done sooner rather than later. Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Mendive, what is the price tag on the Uniroyal? Because I think that one is very, very important.
The interchange or the relief route I mentioned?
Whatever you do on it is going to help that
So
improve
there's
the
a relief
Uniroyal.
route, that would be a local price. So that's, right now, the cost estimate was 11.6, right? Again, that's probably like a 2022 number. The other project that TxDOT had, that's programmed in the Transportation Improvement Program, is the Uniroyal Drive interchange, right? They're widening that. So again, that's, I want to say it's like 200 million.
And they're both funded?
Well, that one's already funded. It's programmed in our TIP. That one is the other one that I'm mentioning, this local road within the Unitech area. That one's not funded. But the overpass widening, that's already funded, and it's, you know, it's part of the.
So yours is
chart project.
$11 million.
This other one is 11.6 million. This is an estimate that was provided through stakeholders in the area. They've been working with Mr. Edward Garza, you know, an engineer. So that's something that they've proposed. That's something that we're exploring through our plan. That's the estimate we have. We probably need to update that estimate. But again, this is something that that's more local that could be done. We could probably put some MPO money, federal funds into this as well. But I wanted to show you all this because
that's the west side of IH-35, not the east side.
This is the east side of 35. And the Unitech Industrial Park area.
A chart roof interchange.
Yeah, because it would connect to that interchange at 35.
Well, on the description, it says,
Yeah, does it say?
right, east and north.
Yeah, so yeah, extending Union Road Drive east and then north to the Charles Ruettiger and I-35
Okay,
interchange.
because it does connect a little bit further up.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't zoom in on this map, but yeah. But yeah, because the future Charles Ruettiger interchange there at 35, again, it's, you know, it's a
I mean, they're
stop at
building
35, it's not going east, but, you know, the idea would be to provide some connection there to be able to also have some more mobility out of the Unitech industrial area.
Because there's huge outfits and they're still growing in that area. I think that one needs a lot of relief.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I know there's a lot of planned developments there as well, right? There's a lot of master plans in the area. There's a lot of growth. So yeah, it's definitely an issue. I believe the master plan to the south of this, they're building some other relief routes, but it would still be at grade route crossing. So, you know, when the train is there, it would not help. So we need to look at that, right? Because that road crossing is there.
Any other questions? Motions?
Got a question.
Sure.
On the technical committees and on the, policy committees, are there, other than public figures, are they private citizens in those committees?
So, and on the policy committee, again, and I failed to mention that, but yeah, we do have, right, our county elected officials, city elected officials, and then we have our textile district engineer, and we have a, you know, at-large member, it can be private. Currently, it's Mr. Jed Brown. He's the chairman of, you know, the Regional Mobility Authority. So that's, you see, really is for the private sector.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and on the technical committee, yeah, we have, you know, we work, it's mostly public entities, but we also have the school districts on there. So we engage with them, or transit agency. And, but through a lot of these studies, we try to have steering committees, and we're trying to see if we can maybe do like a freight committee. I know there's already the Port of Entry Advisory Committee, so we wouldn't want to duplicate anything. But we do engage with a lot of the private stakeholders, like that FM 1472 task force that Textile was leading. We're very involved in that as well. That's how we try to engage with the private stakeholders.
Thank you.
Any other questions, motions? Okay, thank you so much for your presentation.
No problem.
I expect we'll be having you back here before it's all said and done.
Thank
Thank
you
you for your
feedback.
time.
Just want to invite you all on November 21st. We're going to have a public meeting at the public library from 5:30 to 7:30 on our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So I'll send that to Ramon. Hopefully we can send it out.
Great, thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to item number 6. Presentation by the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, TERS number 1, with possible action and any other matters incident thereto. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Just for the public to know, TERS number 1 is the downtown.
Yes, and
TERS.
I really am trying to figure out how much y'all were informed about the TERS, so I have more slides than I probably need to cover.
Can't ever
So-
have too many slides.
So you all let me know, if you already know this and we can move forward. Jose Ceballos, I chair the TERS downtown. What you have up, is essentially the boundaries for the TERS. The TERS was formed in 2017, and, for a period of years, it really didn't have any activity. That's because it, you know, doesn't take in a lot of money, annually through the escrow. And part of it, initially, actually, the first 4 years was just building enough, so that we could bond it and actually gather enough funding so we can kick off some projects. So, it has a 30-year TERS, designed mainly for surface improvements, street improvements. At least that's the way we've been treating it. It had a finance plan that was adopted when it was formed. We're about to update it to allow us to do other things, mostly surface improvements, but maybe getting a little more creative if we have the money to do so. So as bulleted there, it's streetscape improvements, monuments, wayfinding. So I think I may have taken the map off too quickly. So essentially, it's from the riverfront to Scott, to Scott, and then to Laredo College to the other side of the 4 blocks, San Dario. That's essentially the zone. Most of our activity or our initial planning involved connecting, when this first started, connecting the outlets back to the hotel, Aldo de Tangelo walkway, and then the entertainment district on Iturbide Street. It has since obviously changed. The whole purpose of this is to create a conversion of use for downtown and make sure that there's opportunities for folks that are still downtown to sustain their livability there as businesses, but also to try to bring more folks downtown. So a lot of people don't know this. I mean, for what you've heard, this is really minimal money, you know. So when you think, you know, what's going on with the turfs downtown is how much can you really do with this number? So when we bought it the first 4 years, I think we had $800,000, and the city put us in their bonding package. We picked up about 2.4, and that's essentially what we're beginning to put into place now. And interestingly, and there's some strangeness in those numbers, because you see COVID, we did okay, and then after that, we didn't do as good. I mean, when you see that, but in 2020, we did a little better than before. 2024, you see where we're at. So the phase one of the projects are essentially about 8 blocks. It's 2 blocks between Flores and Salinas on Zaragoza, which is our phase one that's currently in construction. And as you would figure, we have a management agreement, project management agreement, and Ramon is our project manager by way of his city engineering title. So they've been very helpful with running that first project. We had some bidding issues with our initial. We put out our 3 phases, which I'll name those the 2 blocks on Zaragoza. There's 4 blocks on Iturbide from Santa Ursula to Convent. The first 2 blocks have sidewalk improvements on 2 sides, and then the other 2 blocks are mostly repairing what needs to be repaired. A little bit of bump outs for parking and for tree planting, but for the most part, it's the first 2 blocks on Iturbide as you turn from Santa Ursula, and then the Alto Tangelo Parkway, which if you've walked it, it's really not walkable for the most part on one side of the street. So resurfacing that entirely is a project. So there's 2 things with downtown is we're basically forming a baseline of cost for surface improvements. We didn't have one. We bidded out the package, all 3, 0 bids. We tried again, and we actually parceled out just the first project, and we got 1 bidder, and that's who's doing the work on Zaragoza Street. So it came in rather high. When we first started planning this, I remember our numbers were about $250,000 for sidewalks and some lighting and some trees per block, and we are heavily exceeding that. So I know, you know, in your planning here, you're probably looking at how much does it cost us per block. It varies. Like the first block we're working on Zaragoza, which is actually between Salinas and Convent, is probably the most expensive block, as we're dealing with different finished floor elevations. The utility issue downtown, you all know it, it's not pretty. We have way too many overhead lines, but it's cost prohibitive to try to go under. So we've kind of just accepted the reality that we're not going to get what was done before on Iturbide because we don't have the budget. Keep in mind, we only have 2.4 roughly, and then we're doing a few other things, wayfinding and a monument sign. So we found out, you know, talking about utility relocation, we took AEP out there to look at that first block on Zaragoza Street, and they came back with a number that exceeded $1.5 million. It's like, well, that's our entire budget for those 2 blocks. So in the end, if you're looking for, so if you take Santa Maria to San Dario and do just the square, there's probably 120 blocks. I think if you ask me, like, how many do you really need that substantial number between 3 or 400,000 per block to do sidewalk improvements? There's probably between 25 and 30 blocks, right? So, and if we did the math, then we'd be coming up with probably like $20 to $30 million to take care of the substantially deteriorated sidewalks. And we presented that in our update to the city, which hasn't been finally adopted, the project plan and financing plan. So, and the request to them was give us $2 million a year for the next 10 years, and we'll take care of what we think are the major areas without really too much utility relocation, which really is just moving a pole a bit to get our ADA clearance. So that's giving you a summary, there's a point there. So after we do that phase one, which I mentioned, those blocks, we, in that same process, to Mr. Shebel's point, we were looking for creative, how do we bring more money if we can leverage some from the city? So we found that the MPO had some TAZA, some transportation alternative money. It does come with a lot of bureaucracy, I'll tell you that, and I say that respectfully for everybody that's in the room, but I think it's worth it. It's gonna be worth it at the end of the day. So we leveraged about $1 million and used 250,000, or what, 200,000 from the TERS. So now you're leveraging and you're bringing in new money. So hopefully we can do that. That's Salina Street. There's 3 blocks that we're looking to do the same thing, basically make them walkable on at least one side, if possible 2 sides, when traffic allows us and utilities don't force us to go just on one side. So those are the blocks that take us all the way. If you start from El Portal, Big Water Street, come back up to Iturbide, it'll be those 3 blocks. Same thing, just increasing the width of the sidewalk, building up the new curb. I don't think in that stretch we did walk it with some of our tech stop friends. I know they're here. We didn't see any major, surprises. Luckily on Zaragoza, which was the most problematic one, we haven't seen any major surprises. We added about $100,000 in AEP relocation. They're coming in, basically bringing their extended tall poles that follow the outlet shops. They're going to bring those on the north side of Zaragoza and kind of clean up some of the areas. Another $120,000 that was added there. But essentially, we got finally, we approached the county to join the TERS, and we got a favorable response. They did, and I put that up just so it's taken us a while, but they did vote on moving favorably and joining the TERS. This is the composition of probably, again, information you probably don't need here, but we're going to have to make room, all things being approved by City Council, and then the county, we're going to have to make room for representation from Webb County. They asked for 3 board members to be added. Statute allows for 1, and then we're going to find another way through ordinance to add an additional 2. Again, those are propositions from the board that'll be taken to the City Council. Just another shot of, you all, I don't think I need to cover much of this. You all know the existing conditions. The bottom picture on the left is Zaragoza Street. And this is just some renderings. I can tell you from our estimates, this is the Alto de Tangelo, kind of just the renderings of it. I think that's too small to see. So,
I have a question, Mr.
Yeah,
Ceballos.
go ahead.
I went to a meeting that Councilmember Cigarroa had at LC maybe 6 months ago or so.
The summit?
Yeah, the summit, there you go. And I was amazed at just how aggressive the city has gotten with the different programs that they have there. And one of them, I might be overstating this, but I don't think so. They were literally giving back for some property owners, new property owners that obviously reinvested, and I'm sure there's some stipulations in the agreement, kind of like a 380 would be.
Yeah.
They're literally giving back all property taxes to that new owner. How does that affect the TERS? Obviously, that is, or does the TERS still get their portion out of that, or how does that work? Is that affecting your revenue stream? Is my question.
We asked, the same folks that formed the TERS or helped form the TERS. Let's see if I have it on here. I don't think I have the slide. I have it on another presentation, but anyway. So it was insignificant. Because we asked them that, look at the NEZ and see what the impact is. So they came back and said, it's really not something that you need to be worried about. So CDS that did the original plan, we hired them, or through Able City, they got hired to update the plan. And they basically gave us projections, which was the slide I was going to get to. And they said that it wasn't something to be concerned for. Now, if you have a lot of that, and here's
It's a good problem,
you don't have
right?
a lot, it's good, but the bad thing about it is that you don't have enough activity to make it a problem.
It's that.
So-
There's not enough people, investors taking advantage of it for it to be an issue.
So
Yeah,
if you had true redevelopment, it could be a problem, right? Where
then you deal with it then.
So that's, it's a very good point, good observation. We have this wayfinding, That has already been awarded. It should be authorized pretty soon. We put out a mural program, $50,000. Even that's taken us a little longer than it should. So this was when we presented the update to the city for presentation purposes, this is basically what we showed them. And we basically said, look, these are the potential uses. This is, if you gave us $2 million a year, as in reality, and somebody said it earlier, you can't use, in downtown, you can't do 10 million worth of repair on the surface and not disrupt
And
business, right?
what was council's answer to that? Are they gonna allocate the 2 million?
They
or
actually
still voting?
allocated, I'm very grateful to them, they allocated 1.5 million and they bonded it. It's part of the 2024 bond
Oh, so just for this year?
for this year. So that was, I mean, that's the first time that's done, so we appreciate them doing that. That will allow us to make whole any gaps, you know, within those 8 blocks and maybe try to do another block or two in that process. That for next year, Mr. Mendive would have loved to already be, you know, turning dirt on the Salinas project, but that's going to roll into next year, and now that hopefully will be delivered next year as well. Again, leverage funds, and hopefully we can add some more of that. These are the projections that were made by the consultant team. My comments are kind of reserved because we haven't realized what was stated in the prior report. So even though you see some large numbers into 2028, 29, it gets bigger. You need redevelopment for those to be true. If you don't have redevelopment, you're not going to grab them. So for this committee is, again, just surface. I think you have another presenter that's going to speak on underground stuff. For us, I mean, if you looked at, you can look at the table that we shared. I mean, that kind of gives you 20 to 30 million on the critically deteriorated walkability issues in downtown. You'd probably be okay. Having said that, you know, well, this is the nature of infrastructure, so you're not going to have enough money to do it if it's 10 years down the road. But yeah, in today's world, some blocks we're only fixing, other blocks we're tearing out and completely redoing. So it varies. Like Zaragoza, that block is somewhere in the 2 blocks are $700,000, right? So that includes lighting. That has the most work on sidewalk because it actually has like a separate walkway, kind of like what they did behind the outlet shops. A little different, but and we're also doing the intersections on Convent and on Iturbide as well. So after Zaragoza, then comes Iturbide. So it'll be bidded as its own package, so we can get hopefully participation. The issues we're having too is bonding, because we're in that smaller window, you know, where you don't have a big contractor, and if we did, we probably couldn't afford it. But so if we're parceling it out, so hopefully.
And are you bonding for 15 or 20 years? What's your payout?
That's a good question. I think we're bonded for 20 years on that initial note.
But you're still going out for some gap financing. You still end up having to have some gap financing for, like what you just mentioned right now. You had a 1-year project.
Yeah, well, if we don't have the money, all we have is what we have in the bank. We're not, yeah. So like, for instance, the TxDOT money, we've got to have, that's a reimbursement program. So it's not a grant. So we've got to have the cash in the city coffers to be able to carry that out.
Yeah, I understand that. For those of you, I guess you've been a council member, you know, 10 years, the money's, you know, whatever allocation it is, you still, even though it was a, you know, a referendum for any bond, you still end up having to get, something happens year 3, year 4, then come back to the council and ask for some short-term, 1-year deals, right? Does that happen?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. And the reason I ask how long it is because right now is probably the worst time to borrow money, right, with the way interest rates are. And in the future, obviously that's why you want to spread it out the longest possible. But at the same time, this is only a 30-year term, so you have to work within those confines as well. But you'll have opportunities to be able to refinance in the future once interest rates get a little bit better, to free up a little bit more money to be able to work with. Yeah. And to Mr. Schwabel's point, I'm wearing the same mindset here is especially this day and age, when everybody, as the economy continues to slow down and interest rates have just been eating at every single person, you have to be that much more aggressive to find different alternative ways to be able to find money to be able to invest, which you're doing.
Right.
But just, I think it's important that mindset, not just at the TERS, but also at the city government and the county and every other government embraces that mindset.
I agree. Yeah, probably the biggest misconception about the TERS is that there's a huge ton of cash there, and there isn't. I mean, do you bond 300,000? No, you don't. So that was a frustration at first. Is you have a TERS board meeting and doing their work for planning and all that, but if you don't have enough to do a project, you just need to sit on it until you can do a project.
So who comes up with that downtown street funding that you got from TechStop? Who came up with that? How does that come up?
Well, some of us helped put it together, the city and some of the TERS board worked on it and got it to Mr. Mendiva, and then he got it to TechStop. So it's kind of, it runs through the MPO.
I understand.
But
it doesn't come from staff, it comes from someone had an idea, go check it out.
well, yeah, and there's a lot of, so the TERS doesn't have capacity, so we rely on the staff to do it. And frankly, there's 3 departments that interface with us. Community Development is our liaison department. They do a great job for us. Ramon Chavez is the Park City Engineering, is our project manager, per se, in terms of the projects being carried out. And then Economic Development's like, they're since lately, right? Because Ms. Castillo hasn't been around a long time. She took on some other work, mural stuff and other things. So everybody is trying. The point, Mr. Sherwood, that you're trying to make is a good one. Is like we should probably do a better job, all of us together, to get out there and seek alternative sources of funds, right? I think that's important. And then 2, you get these things, and it did happen, where you get fresh notices that money's available and you missed it, and then folks don't necessarily want to write it and rush to. So I asked that question once at a board meeting: is can we do it as a board and back in approvals? So it depends on what it is, right? So
Well, I was never crazy about selling. I shouldn't say crazy about selling bonds, because that's how cities do business. You sell bonds. But for example, I was in this charter revision committee here a couple months ago, and one of the propositions that we proposed was limiting the selling of bonds for discretionary money purposes to $1 million for the entire council. So $1 million for the entire council, and then that gets divvied up to, it would come out to like $200,000 a council member. So, and the committee wanted 0, but I said that's not going to work, and it didn't work anyway. But my point is, this year, I believe we're still selling $1 million in bond money for discretionary purposes for each council member. I think that's what we did. So my point, wouldn't it be more, what's the word I was going to use intelligent. Wouldn't it be more prudent for the council to sell bonds instead of $8 million or $9 million in bonds every single year for discretionary money purposes? Let's limit that and get the $2 million that you're asking for every single year and putting that into infrastructure, because that's where bond money should go. It should go into infrastructure. It should go into a project that's important as down to the revitalization of downtown. And those are just, frankly, common sense ways to be able to finance them, to make sure that we're taking advantage of every single tax dollar that comes in and making sure it's being invested where it should be invested, as opposed to discretionary monies where it's just kind of, well, I think I have this pet project this year, and I'm gonna fund that with my discretionary monies.
well, this year we asked and we got some allocation, and we'll put it to use.
Yeah, and the hope is moving forward every year, and let's rein in some of this other spending and just put it into projects that make sense for the people of Laredo. It's thinking out loud.
Any questions for me? Any other questions for me?
Council members,
Thank you
commissioners.
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Okay, moving on to, that was 6. Moving on to item number 7, presentation by the Public Works Department with possible action and any other matters incident thereto. I'm sure John's been chomping at the bit to get up here.
Love coming up to them. Member of the Commission, good afternoon, good evening. Have a quick presentation start off real briefly, we're gonna talk about paving streets, correct?
Yes.
Sidewalks, mostly streets. Very expensive. You can tell, there's from 2014, I could've gone all the way to 2007, which is when, Carlos Villarreal had come in and with a very aggressive,
Now, this is the amount of blocks down here in the bottom, or what is that, 220?
Blocks.
Okay.
You
Those
can see
are
from
the amount of
2000
blocks that you paved in 2014, it was 224 blocks.
Right, from 2007 to 14, we were paving very aggressive. The first year was 825 blocks. 2015, you can see it's when we pretty much almost stopped. Money finished, all the way to 2021. Marte came in, and again brought the council. We needed to bring back money for paving. And we started again the paving program again in 2022.
This is all new paving, this is all new paving, or is not a repaving? This is repaving.
This is resurfacing.
Resurfacing.
The existing street, like we just did McPherson, I'm sure you've seen it, from Del Mar to Hillside. Okay, that's just resurfacing of streets. Materials. The longer you wait, the more it's gonna cost. Gives you more or less from 2014 what we used to pay for the asphalt per ton or the oil. And how much does it take to pave a regular city street? Anywhere from 90 to 100 tons. Plus labor, plus machinery.
And that, right now, 2025, it's $75 a ton,
A ton.
and it takes how many for a city block? How many tons?
90 to 100
90 to 100 tons.
per block. That's a regular standard 27 by 333. Once you add.
And that's if we're doing it in-house.
Huh?
That's if we're doing it in-house.
If
If you're doing it.
You sub it out like the city used to before. Back then it was a company named Cutler that used to do it. I don't know if y'all recall back in 1990s. We paid them, I believe it was $2 million that they would do 100 blocks. And we would put in, we had a lot of our people and the dump trucks. They were just bringing the milling machine and their people to do the resurfacing.
When's the last time we subbed out any street paving?
Probably 1999, 2000, when we took over, when I took over, yeah. And before then it was Cutler, company out of Colorado that would, snows over there, so they come look for work over here. And they come in, eat our money, and run. So, you know, in 2002, 2003, we bought our first milling machine and started the paving program, and then we escalated to what we have now.
So you said that there was some paving, stop paving, that's completely stop paving, but really turned down the paving in around 2020 is when you it turned down like 2017, right, 2017.
2015.
Okay, 2015.
Yeah.
And in
In
2017,
2016, I had I had money left over.
All right, so then it kicked up again in 2022. How much bond money was sold, and against what revenue stream to get that going
I
again?
think that was $3 million.
3 million, and it was just COs.
That's when they started. They did not want to use the bridge funding.
Okay.
They wanted no bonds. Sorry, I think we're back to bonds
No bond. So so the money was coming from where?
from the bridge. They wanted to make
Really?
sure the funding was coming from an in-source, no longer borrow for 30 years, pay back that, and the streets are only gonna last 20. It should last 20. Even though we have streets that only last a year now. But anyway, that's something else. Again, so then you can see what materials, the longer we wait, the more it's gonna cost. That's when we did, give you an example, not very old, they're off of Casa Verde Road. We had to rip it out, put a French drain and, repair it. That's just about a 3-block section. And the street, Oh, it doesn't have one crack on it. I just have 3 of these slides. Callahan Street, or normal street, in Laredo. Cienega is Ramon Chavez's nightmare and his engineers. The street was not very old. I feel bad for the people that live there.
What district is this?
This is district, it's over there in front of the landfill.
Okay. 2? I think it's 2.
3. Yeah, I feel bad, but again, we're already on it. Just to show you some of the streets. It's not just resurfacing, is what I'm trying to say.
And this is a water drainage issue as well?
That is all irrigation systems.
Irrigation.
Again, they have beautiful lawns. We don't care about the streets. You have one or the other. That's what I'm trying to say, that it's not just resurfacing streets, is my point. Sometimes we gotta go in there and invest in the French drains. It seemed to work for years. Here's Sun Valley. This is right off of the loop in front of Unit Trade, a new subdivision that's there. Not that old, look at it.
And this happens, this only certain parts of town, and I say this from experience, obviously. District 5 was really bad because
5, 6.
yeah, because of just the soil is just different. And as you know, there's certain minimum standards that the developers have to meet when it comes to street paving.
And they meet it.
But yeah, correct. But that's not. It's not all the same throughout the city of Laredo.
Soils are
is different. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to introduce this process in testing the soil, so that some parts the minimum standards were going to be raised, and we'd have to install a French drain, so that we didn't have to go in there and incur this expense once the warranty is already out on the street. And the developers, it was an item that I introduced, and the developers fought us on it, and it obviously didn't fall through. But that would save a lot of the costs that we have right now. There's still always going to be street paving needs, but this is just repairs that on most of these streets are inside of 5 years old, and they're completely, like Lakeside, a mess.
The only good streets in Lakeside are the ones that have installed French drains.
The streets in Lakeside are horrible, and we couldn't make them install French drains
You all are
because they
familiar
didn't have
with
to.
Los Palmares? Everything north of the loop? It's not gonna stop growing to the north. And it's all gonna look like this.
Yeah, and we're gonna continue to have issues like this.
All gonna be like this.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when looking at this slide, Sun Valley Drive, and you look at that sidewalk, and the developer did the sidewalk, or the city did the sidewalk?
What was that?
The developers
Developer does the
does
sidewalk,
sidewalks.
okay?
Whoever builds the home
Yeah.
does the sidewalk.
Well,
The
that's-
developer does the curb and gutter.
The development, basically, the development, basically. So the life of that sidewalk versus the life of that street, do y'all ever determine, in the development of that project? Because obviously you said that street, that's right there, how old is that street, would you say?
3 years?
3 years, okay. But the sidewalk's also 3 years, don't you? Huh? I look at the sidewalk, I look at the street, one outlasts the other.
Valley gutters,
Talking about
sidewalk,
concrete.
the curb and gutters.
Talking about concrete.
Right.
Yeah, so that would also require changing the minimum standards of a street. And while nowadays, before the difference, the price of concrete and asphalt was astronomical, now it's not so much, but there's still a difference, and your developers are gonna fight you tooth and nail. Because even though it's just a little bit, over time, and that's your business, it a little bit adds up. And they will fight you tooth and nail.
I fought council already one time, and again, I lost to the developers. Their reasoning was, if we put the French drain, they're gonna pass the cost to the homeowner. But at the end, those are
It costs
the
the
living
homeowners
conditions that
anyway,
they're gonna have.
it's their tax dollars.
I mean,
It costs us all at the end.
Yeah.
And it's a sales pitch, in my opinion. A lot of people have this mentality that the city will fix it for free. There is no free money in this world, or at least not in the United States of America. We're all paying for it. And that's the education part that we need to work on. Because nobody wants to, the developer doesn't want to do it, and the homeowner doesn't want to do it, and the city does it, and then our taxes. But then we all pay for that neighborhood or that other neighborhood not doing their job. And is that fair? but it's an educational part, in my opinion. It's sad. It's sad that we are at this, that we have to go through this in 2024, and people don't understand that. It's,
Well, even when there is free money like there was right after COVID, now we're paying for that with the cost of living, right? Everything is three times.
so was it free?
To your point, it wasn't free.
Exactly.
It's gonna get paid one way or
Yeah,
another.
it's gonna get paid.
Y lo barato sale caro. Pay money and it's on. Make peanuts, you get a motor.
Yeah, so, yeah, your curb and gutters eventually will look like a roller coaster. Stagnant waters, which you've seen in the past. You've seen, some of the sidewalks that are full of lime green, full of lime, which is saturated. People that have, where their, hopes are, split level with retaining walls. Water just coming out. Came on the news, where the council yesterday, where, their backyards, again, too much water, roots are gonna rot, trees are gonna rot, grass is gonna rot. I will eventually, I know where those streets are, we will get to them, and install the French drains, and that will solve the, part of the problem. But the development's growing, the city's growing so fast that, I mean, when am I gonna catch up? So, no, next slide.
How do I change my 84-year-old uncle that probably half of his life had an unpaved street and watered his unpaved street to stop watering his paved street? The culture change that you gotta have with people.
Yeah.
I venture to say there's some people that probably are watering their paved streets.
No, I've gone to people's homes that tell me, my grass is super saturated, so I go to their homes and, I step on their grass the first thing, of course my foot's gonna go down about 3 inches. So where are your sprinkler heads? So I don't know, they go off at night. So the sprinkler heads never come up.
Yeah, there's.
So all that water that is going under the sidewalk, under the curb, into the base. And, again, the weakest point under the asphalt is your sub base with your original dirt and the caliche meat. That gets wet, then it's clay. The street's done. Then you have the garbage trucks that drive over it. And little by little, they start giving out. And then your curb and gutters give out, and the sidewalk will follow.
And then your neighbor with the 18-wheeler. Like you have every now and again, someone that has.
Depends where you live. If you live over here in central Laredo, most of South Laredo, you can drive whatever you want to on those streets. They're good. The soils are different. There is no irrigation systems.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And if they do have irrigation systems, their soils are different.
Well, I don't know if you're gonna get in your budget, but what kind of budget do you all
Not
work on?
much. Again,
You all have a budget?
yeah,
So,
again, this is residential. I'm not even gonna get into industrial parks. That's a total different.
You said residential, you have a budget, my question is gonna be,
For maintenance, about 350,000.
say again?
350,000.
so this is was an ongoing issue, and these are things that were very important to me when I was in council, which is why we brought over some propositions again during the charter revision committee. And the last time we sold a bond, and I don't like selling bonds for street pavement because you're borrowing money for 20 years for something that's gonna last 10 if you're lucky. So it doesn't make sense. It's just bad business. But the last time we sold bonds, when it was in 2014, I believe, when we sold money against utilities bond, which you don't normally do.
And that's what I used.
But the way we justified it was utility was going in there and ripping up the streets to replace water lines. So that's how we sold it to the bonding company, and we borrowed $10 million, and that lasted up until, I guess, 2018.
I might still have a little bit of money left.
So what I wanted, what we proposed as a charter revision committee is taking 5% of all property taxes collected, which would have been about $5 million, and allocate that to street paving, so that we can get real money, that we're not borrowing, so we can give utilities, Public Works a budget, because right now they don't have a budget. It's constantly, every now and again, it's like, John, after about 2 years of saying, I need money, City Council finally says, okay, well, let's sell a bond for $10 million, which you shouldn't do, but the need is there, and they do it. So my point is, we propose that, and then we propose moving any leftover money from the previous year's budget, which would have been last year would have been about $4 million. And they're also dedicating that to street paving, which would have been about $7 million, $8 million right now, and growing as property taxes grew. So that he would have had a steady revenue stream that were for street paving got shut down.
I remember when you were in
These are things,
council,
the common sense things that make
that
sense to be able to
administration-
finance things, so that we're not we get out of this cycle of borrowing money for something that's going to last for less time than
when you
I'm
were,
trying to get an understanding, I'm trying to,
go ahead.
bear with me here, very basic. You're telling me that you go every year or every other year, whatever it is that you go and you look at your budget, and you ask for more money because there's no ongoing maintenance program based
For
in
resurfacing.
regards to budget planning for maintenance of streets?
Not necessarily. Yes and no. The reason there isn't is because there's not a steady revenue stream. There's no place like utilities.
That's what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
what I'm getting at. Because you have new developments coming up, right? And you have new developments, they may have a life of 2 or 3 years in the street, but you have, part of it is growth driven maybe, okay? But at the same time, you still gotta take care of the aging and deteriorating streets. So how do you plan your budget based on the number of streets that you have?
It's just again, it's John going up there for up to the
Stretching
podium or
dollars,
private
stretching
meeting
the
saying, "Hey, I
people.
need money, I need money, I need money, I need money," and because there hasn't been any like direct allocation of a revenue stream, it always turns into selling bonds.
We need a constant, again, I'll go back to when he was in council and the former city manager came in. All of our major thoroughfares, the majority of them were shot. Anyone you want, the Meadow, Market, Santa Maria, Washington, Del Mar. So the first year we got $10 million to start off. And the city manager said, if you go under 5, you let me know. As soon as I went under 5, he put me 5 more. And after that, I got 3 more. So in other words, we were paving 6 days a week, 10-hour days. That's what we were able to accomplish 825 blocks in 10 months, because we started in January. We got money, and back then, I want to say the tonnage was probably at about $38, $39 a ton.
It was 54, I think is what I saw.
2007?
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm going back when we started the paving crew. When we started, got the good sized crew together and trained them, and we hit the ground running, and we still haven't stopped. The last few years that we have paved, but a lot of priority funding that they would pay for whatever they wanted paved. Now we're back on the paving program again.
We have a $1 billion budget. $1 billion budget. So obviously, Mr. Schwab, when we're in business, we know that's a lot of fat that you can cut. So there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be able to find a steady revenue stream, like the suggestion that the Charter Revision Committee made, to be able to dedicate.
This year we got 5.
And we
happy
just
for this.
can't get 5 members on council to say yes.
They're all pro paving.
So it's a constant. You behind the 8 ball. We got to get this done. Our streets are deteriorating. We are largest in that port in North America. We have industrial sections that we got to get it done. So what ends up happening? Sell it, baby. Sell bonds, and it's a vicious cycle.
Again, back in 2008, I know you recall a grant that we got for $20 million that we invested all in the industrial parks. We hit about 8, 9 different industrial parks. We converted mostly a lot of the intersections into concrete intersections. And anything in between, they resurfaced. A lot of valley gutters, like for example, Killam from Sada to 35 to Mines. A lot of it's concrete, all the intersections, and the streets got resurfaced. And this lasted a good while. With 20 million, we were able to expand, but now obviously everything's more expensive. We need to, I think I got the city, but what I need help is with industrial parks. And to work there during the day is tough. It's very hard and dangerous. But it can be done, of course, but we need to, like you said, go to Washington, Austin, and fight for those monies for all these trucks that are just not servicing, they're just coming through Laredo, affecting us and going up north. So they should step up to help us out.
And there's also, so you suggest that the industrial park should be subcontracted That's what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
So too
also,
many.
and the tech stop, but maybe the MPO, you could use category 7 money for that, could you not? Because it's dangerous, category 7 or category 9 monies for that? Of course, that would
yeah.
require a directive from the MPO,
Yeah, I think you could use probably Cat 7 funds. It's not something
but
we've
there's none
done
left,
before.
but if there were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to fill funding gaps. I guess that's been the strategy, right, with the policy committee. But I know there's a lot of different things that you can do with Cat 7. It's very flexible.
Yes.
But yeah, even at the tech side level, at the state level, they really want to see you putting that into construction projects. So they favor that.
Yeah. So to your point, Commissioner Schwab, there's just so many different ways to skin a cat, but ultimately you need to have some type of revenue.
I'm not
stream
talking
that you know
thousands
is
either, I'm
coming.
talking billions.
That may work if your cost was constant of your materials, but it ain't. You saw the fluctuations.
Yeah, that's
58 to $75, $78. Well,
Concrete. I didn't put the concrete one there, I should have.
I saw there was one that was in there. It was 17 blocks.
Y'all remember
compared to
several
100.
years ago doing work in your own home, paying $75 a cubic yard, $80 a cubic yard? They're at $190. $190 a cubic yard. Not too long ago, they were at $85.
The estimate that we got is like 33% more from asphalt to concrete. I think there was, for the Vallecillo, I think it was 33% extra for concrete. Yours?
Yeah, it's not much of a difference, if you do it right. And I'm not talking caliche, I'm talking 8 inches of black base with 2 inches of asphalt
But you went from
versus
78,
concrete.
you went from 78 to 190? Is that what you said?
$78, $80 a cubic yard of concrete to 190, 180 right now. That's the cost. That's
100.
my cost. Who knows what the people out there are paying?
That's a big difference.
And that's 30 PSI. 300, sorry. 3,000. We go up to the 5,000s, it's more. And steel also went up. Labor, machinery. Can't find machinery.
Yeah,
It can be done though. But again, like I said, we're no longer in the thousands, we're in the millions where what
yeah,
we need to
and
get the city.
you know, again, this is one of the reasons why this particular committee is here. It's the Public Works Committee, right? And they're asking for 307.
It's a lot of money.
$307 million is the ask for essentially street paving. And which is my point, is why the can just keeps getting kicked down the road and kicked down the road and kicked down the road, and now they're behind the 8 ball, and it's like, well, we need $300 million, which is, that's a
Industrials,
third number.
we have 749 lane miles throughout the city. Industrials 105. That'd be 90 million for industrial. 645 million to do residential. A lot of money. But again, we can't do it all in 1 year or in 5 years. We got, again, start now and don't stop. Every year that we stop, we're gonna pay for it later.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, we also can't, and I don't think any of us are comfortable with putting all the onus on the taxpayers, especially when
Well, I'm not saying
there's so many,
no.
there's so many different other ways to be able to.
$300 million is not gonna happen.
To find ways, and again, we have $1 billion budget. There's absolutely no reason why we can't find $7, $8, $10 million a year to dedicate to street paving every single year. And I think, you have mentioned sending a message, Commissioner Schwab, about being more creative. We all need to be better about. I mean, we presented something that made sense to the council. That would have, and what I loved about it is it was going to go through the charter, so they would have had to have followed it. Had those amendments gone through, and they would have, if they got put on the ballot, had they got put on the ballot, the people would have supported it, and council would have been forced to be fiscally responsible, would have been forced to make sure that this money is being allocated for something that's important. Instead, they said no, and then 2 months later, they're asking for $300 million. I mean, so we have to be better about telling our council members and making sure, hey, this is something that you need to do.
There was a comment made yesterday in council. One of the council members said that the city is not a business, and it shouldn't be ran as a business. I strongly disagree with that.
Yeah, that's scary.
We all run a business. And I guarantee you, if they ran the city like a business, they would find areas where they can save money. That is the job of leadership. You know, it's not just to spend it, it's also to find ways of saving money. And if we were to just pick any department at random, any of us up here, I guarantee you we would save money on things. From something as simple as boots that they buy for staff several times a year to, do they really need them that many times?
Yeah.
You know, to the amount of money they spend on some of the vehicles they purchase. If they don't look at it like it's their money, and that's the problem.
And another thing that I don't know if we're all aware of is since, I believe, 2018, council's been drawing for our $2 to $3 million every year from our reserves. Every year, taken from our reserves, $2 to $3 million a year. So I'm going to share a quick story that I had with a council member here a month ago. And we're early on in the budget process. So usually all the departments come in and they have these huge wish lists. So they're usually, $25, $30 million over budget at this point in the process. And over time, as you get closer, obviously it gets whittled down, stuff that makes sense. So you're within budget, unless they're $2 or $3 million short. Apparently now they're just taking it from the reserves funds. But my point is, as the council member's telling me this, and so what's your plan? He said, well, we're going to take it from the reserves. Like, we have 23 million in reserves, and you're 25 million over budget. That makes no sense. And I go, let's pretend you're Elon Musk. And the city of Laredo is your business, right? To your point, it's your business. You have $23 million in the bank, and you're $25 million over budget. So you have a couple of choices. One is take all $23 million and make your budget, which would be suicide. Or what? What else could you do? And without a second thought, he says, borrow more. Split second. Never thought, let's cut here, let's cut there, borrow more was the answer, immediately. And I thought, man, we got problems. So, here we are, right now, contemplating how do we fix all this.
This is part of our budget, director.
Hello. I just want to clarify a couple of things. The $981 million budget for the city of Laredo includes all the departments.
Understood.
The general fund portion of it is $278 million. So we haven't drawn down our fund balance. It actually has been growing. We estimate this year it's going to be approximately 55 million. But one of the issues that we have, $55 million
The reserves.
fund balance,
The
fund balance for general fund. That is, money's available in case something happens and we need to address any catastrophe that happens within general fund. We have been increasing that fund balance because some of the requirements when we issue some bonds, they look at our fund balance. They want to make sure we have 60, 90 days of reserves in case something happens. The other note that I want to make is that.
So just let me interrupt real quick, sorry.
No.
Where did this notion come from that the fund balance has been drawn from?
I don't know. Every year when we come in to present the budget, it has to be a balanced budget. So revenues have to meet our expenditures. During the year, we always try to look at our expenditures, make sure we don't go over our budget. And for the past 3 years that I've been here, we have been able to have either savings on our appropriations or revenues coming a little higher, which we have been increasing our fund balance. So our fund balance, we have not been drawing down on our fund balance. On the contrary, it has been going up. And this is as planned, so that when we issue bonds, we have a better rating from our bond agencies. So that is one of the reasons we try to do that. And now after COVID, a lot of the cities are increasing those fund balances. So the other thing, the other challenge that we have is that property taxes, it's about $100 million, like you mentioned. 20 million of that goes to pay debt service. 80 million of that goes to fund
Fine, Pete.
general fund. Remember, we have a $280 million
Yeah.
budget. We have another 55 million that comes in from sales tax. We transfer in monies from bridge to cover general fund. Public Works budget is 11 million. So we do have approximately 300,000 he mentioned for buying the street
Let
material.
me ask you a question real quickly, and that I know the answer to already. When we sell bonds, then there's different bonds. There's revenue bonds, there's COs, there's all these different bonds. But when we sell bonds for discretionary money purposes, what are we selling that against? What revenue stream are we selling those bonds from?
You're talking about the council discretionary funds? It's under tax supported.
Okay, so that means that money comes from where?
Property tax.
So that is general fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's my point. It's always fat to cut. And yes, I understand, we all understand the general fund is constrained. Public safety takes up 67% of it.
60%.
There's all of that. We totally understand that. And we're not, and by the way, thank you for clarifying that the fund balance has not been drawn down from, that's reassuring. We all understand that. The point is we all also understand that there's other ways to be able to make sure that all the needs are met without just continuing to put the pressure or the onus on the people and the business owners, right?
In addition, did I hear, I don't know which presentation, someone say, or maybe it's been said maybe more than once, that you are using revenue from our bridges for other programs in the city?
So they used to be for street paving, that was new, but there's always a transfer. I think it used to be 20 million transfer from bridge revenue to the general fund. And by the way, that's no different from any other city. Now for San Antonio, for example, they don't have a bridge, but I think they get it from power, and they own the power and light there. So everybody has their own, every city has their own side
Our
hustle,
bridges are golden goose.
if you will.
Oh, wait. That's not happen, that doesn't happen in Hidalgo County, it doesn't happen in
They don't have
Cameron
bridge.
County, huh?
Oh, Hidalgo County.
Hidalgo County, it doesn't happen in Cameron County, and you've got two bridges that you gotta worry about there. That where you allocate, what you use, McAllen doesn't generate anywhere where we got. And I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing, comparing Laredo to McAllen. McAllen doesn't have any debt, they don't have any bridge traffic like we do, okay? And I'm sure they got streets, but the question is, the management of the funds, that's the question, as to where you're taking from Peter to pay Paul, you're putting money over here, putting money over there. And at the same time, then you're going out there maybe borrowing money for basic infrastructure that is part of your revenue stream maker, which is your bridge. We're talking about 1472 over here, and you got, how much do you get out of the bridge right now? 70, 80? Okay, let's say it was 75, okay? So you leverage, leverage a 75, however multiple times you can, instead of going into debt, but leverage it multiple times to do some of that funding for, what the challenges you're having out of your major revenue stream.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point as you're taking money from one, but that's why I reference the entire budget, because it all comes together.
By ordinance, Mr. Plaza saying that 50% comes to the city of Laredo. He'll take it. He's the one that steals money from all of us.
But I think we can all agree that I'm much more comfortable with taking money from the bridge, which is cash money,
Of course.
and putting that to street paving instead of bonding.
There is some
Well,
money.
I may differ a little bit on that one. I can differ it for street paving or projects that are maybe connected to the bridge and give ingress and egress for the mobility off of that bridge. But I wouldn't necessarily agree that you take money from the bridge to go pave, a north part of town or an east part of town or a south part of town where it doesn't generate the revenue. If we generate, our budget is basically what? Ad valorem taxes, sales tax receipts.
Those are the two main ones.
But you gotta also remember,
Say again?
Commissioner, that our taxes does not doesn't even cover police and fire.
Well, wait, that's a different story. One thing is your expenses, one thing is your revenue, okay?
Well, I'm talking about
Yeah.
revenue, so where else are we gonna get from?
But you got a revenue stream, but if your expenses are gonna be, your demand, everybody's asking for more money, you gotta live with what you got, okay? That's what I'm trying to tell you. That if you got other communities that don't have a certain revenue stream like we have, which is our bridge, and you start pulling from that revenue stream and not, for other things, that's a luxury that
That's
you've
been
got.
going on
right
for
now.
years and years.
Well-
That's always what happened.
You know, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is a definition of insanity too, So you gotta change, you gotta pull back and understand really, this is my revenue, this is my budget, this is what I can spend. Whether if you wanna go out there and borrow, or you wanna go out there and pull money from your major revenue stream, doesn't mean it's always gonna be there. You've gotta have a budget, you gotta live within that budget. I mean, as someone that's gonna be involved in trying to recommend a bond to go out to the taxpayers, we've gotta be prudent that if you're gonna keep the same practices, you're gonna ask me for more money and you wanna continue doing the same thing, I'm sorry, that dog don't hunt in my book, So I think we gotta think about, as we work through this stuff, and allow me to work through this and help out any way I can in constructive recommendations, that there's gonna be changes if we're gonna go ask for taxpayers for money as the way that we're spending the money. Whether it's an idea such as you're proposing, Mr. Chairman, or others, we've got to think about other ways of how we're gonna spend the money, because we're all the same taxpayers. That's all I'm saying.
Agreed, wholeheartedly, and the only way to be able to ensure that happens, because as there's new council members that come in, there's a different way of thinking. So that's, again, to my point, that's why I was so excited about putting it on the ballot, so that there can be a change in the charter, because once it's on the charter, that's it. That's the Bible. You can't deviate from that. And that's the only way to be able to make sure that you can hold them fiscally accountable. And the more money you take, I said this as a council member, it's hard to put a price on what fire and police does for us until you're in a position where you got to put a price on it. That's kind of your job. And by taking some of the money out of that pot and dedicating it to something as important as street paving, then as the pot shrinks, then it's less for
Many
them
things
to
are
be
important
able to
though
take
in
out
the
of there,
city. We're talking about street paving. You also have the water, you have the sewer, you have the garbage collection, there's many things that are important in the city. Paving has been, again, industrial parks is big.
But those all have revenue streams that you can leverage.
The majority of them, yes.
Public Works
Parks
does
does
not.
not, Public Works does not.
That's a perfect example. You call 911, they'll send you police, they'll send you an ambulance, they'll send you a medium-sized,
Fire truck.
water thing,
Fire.
the fire truck, and then they'll send you the biggest one. Hey, why are you doing that? I mean, that's a waste of money, honestly. And
The
the
reason they
60%,
do that is
because
because
that's how they spend
If
it.
you're close to Station 4, but they're out already, they'll send somebody from 2 other stations.
Oh, but
to
the
come and-
amount of
come and help.
trucks and people
Oh,
that
yeah.
they send for 911, it's.
I went on a ride I was at the police station or the fire station once, just to kind of get an idea of what they were doing and I was in District 4, the fire station there on Bartlett and Malinche, which is the busier one.
Station 5, yeah.
And I think within like 3 hours, it was like 3 calls, and all 3 of those calls were just older people. One of them was a lady that wanted help getting her remote from because they just want to talk to people. They're older and they're alone. But to your point, it costs money. So and you can't ignore those calls, because what if one of these days it is an actual emergency. There's all these things going on, when you're making these decisions and trying to make sure that they're getting financed properly. But again, to the point is, there's gotta be some rhyme and reason to it, and right now there is no rhyme and reason to it. There's just, again, to my story earlier, just borrow. We need to get away from that.
One additional point that I would like to bring out is this committee goal is to identify those items that we're going to potentially put in this referendum. This referendum then if it gets approved by the voters, will then give the city the authority to actually sell those bonds. So the ultimate goal from here is to, if we identify street improvements programs or any of the other programs that you all look and identify, is the committee's making, hopefully it's gonna make a recommendation saying that, okay, we're gonna start a street paving program that is paid by these bonds, which is in essence gonna create an increase in the tax rate for the taxpayer,
Right.
which is for the portion of that debt service that we're gonna issue out. So it is one of the one of the big items in this discussion, because when we look at doing the budget on a yearly basis, like Mr. Orfila mentions, one of the priorities that the city has is public safety. Police and fire comes first. We take care of those first. Fire, and when we talk about expenses, fire department, 90% of their budget, which is about $73 million, 90% of it is personnel. So when we look at it and we try to look at those line items and say, well, where do we have some room to cut? 90% is personnel. We would have to let firefighters go to be able to make a significant impact to that $72 million.
And every year they add.
And we're growing. We just added 2 fire stations that are in the works. We added 24 firefighter cadets, and then we added 38 in this upcoming budget. And that's one of the reasons that it grew by 28 million. So the monies that we're getting from these sources, we're barely breaking even. One of the challenges that we have is that now we have that cap of 3.5% growth. So even though the appraisals go higher, we can only go up to 3.5%. So that is limiting us on the revenues that we collect when our expenses are going by double digits. So that's part of the challenge, that when we get down to public safety or public works, I'm sorry, this year we had in our bond $5 million for a paving program. He does have about 300,000 in his normal budget of 11 million that covers some of that. We also have our CIF fund, our capital improvements fund, that also has some monies to pay for some of the materials that he has as well. Right. So in total, he gets anywhere from $5 million to $8 million on an annual basis based on the needs that he has for his department. So, and those are some of the challenges. That's when we started discussing the referendum, this is an opportunity to be able to fund that paving program through this bond monies, which in essence is going to be coming through an increase of tax on the tax rate.
Yeah, we all agree that there's needs, and John can tell you as a council member, I don't think there was any that supported his needs and what he needed to get his job done, because John and I worked very well together in multiple different projects, and I think the feeling that I'm getting from this committee, which is honestly what I figured, is we understand the needs. We understand that it takes money to be able to run a city council, but excuse me if I'm speaking for the committee, but one of the issues that I had going into this, into selling the idea of selling bonds, especially for street paving, is it's difficult to suggest to a body, like, this is how much we think you should sell in bonds when you haven't shown me any fiscal responsibility. And I think that's where we're all at. Is like, how are we supposed to suggest, go ahead and sell, another $150 million when you haven't even tried to find it somewhere else. If you come to where, like, we have no other options, and I feel good that you've done your job of being completely fiscally responsible. Okay, here you go. But I'm sorry, but I don't have that feeling, and I think I can.
If I may add, Francisco Mata, Director of Finance.
Oh, there's trouble. There you go.
So I gotta add something to that. I want to make sure it's clear in my understanding the role that we have. And I've been to several bond referendums in school districts. Okay? And the biggest challenge we have is that it's telling someone, yeah, we've increased your credit limit, but that doesn't mean you got to spend it all at one time. Okay? And therefore, just because you got it doesn't mean you got to go ahead and spend it. And I think part of what I'm hearing is that At the same time that we're saying we have this capacity, there are other things that other steps that we've got to take in the way that and this is a learning, I've learned a lot tonight, and I appreciate everyone's input. But yes, we're talking about a little bit of experience here in the private sector side, and the only way you grow and you control your expenses, okay? And we're not gonna be controlling expenses because everything is gonna be, the easy thing to do is go out there and borrow. That again, you know, I think we ain't gonna get a lot of good settlement from the taxpayer, okay? And I'm a taxpayer too, so it's a fact that we've got to also have both. You've gotta be prudent in what you're gonna recommend within a reasonable budget, okay? And you're gonna have to change some practices. You're gonna have to do it. If not, then the credibility is gonna be shot, you know.
Francisco Mata, Director, City Director, and this is great dialogue to have, and certainly you will have that opportunity to have this dialogue with the main committee. So we stay in with our goals of this subcommittee is identify and go ahead and prioritize those needs that we need that these different departments have. But certainly these are great. This is great discussion, great dialogue to have when we bring the committees together. So that for the purpose of this subgroup is not lose track or focus on what we're trying to do is prioritize their needs and then certainly bring this dialogue to the main committee to have that discussion to take to city council. So.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's our job to be able to hone in on what it is that the needs are. But again, it's also, I find we're finding like the needs are to be more fiscally responsible. Yeah, is what the sentiment that we're getting. And that's not to say that there's not going to be some suggestion because I think we all feel the same way as the way I do is I don't want to sell a single more dollar in bonds. That being said, we can't just say zero. I mean, obviously there's some other suggestions that we're going to have as a committee, but to your point, we do have to hone in on, okay, what are we, if you're forcing us to put something in front of you, which is where we're at, we're forced to, voluntarily, of course, but we're voluntarily, okay, this is what we're okay with. And that's ultimately what we will come back around and put something together.
Yeah.
But not without us saying, here's something, like a parent almost saying, here's your teenager, here's some more money, but you need to do, that's kind of what's in it.
Absolutely, and again, and so I would encourage to have this dialogue with the main committee. These are great discussions to have with them for the purposes.
I don't believe that whatever we recommend, the city council is going to agree to it.
Agreed.
Right.
Okay.
Then you have that hurdle.
Yes.
As
So
well.
I'll start off with that premise.
Right.
Okay. So I've been on these things enough to understand that whatever work we do, it can change by a vote, city council meeting. Yeah. So, but the message still needs to be delivered, and I hope people that are maybe watching it or maybe coming to these, I think we're all a little bit conscious that, hey, you got to watch how you're spending because you're throwing big bucks out there. Yeah. I'm looking at these figures here. Yeah. These are big bucks.
And that's now.
Huh?
And that's now.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying you can't be going asking. I've yet to go to a bond referendum where it's been less than the previous one. Okay.
No, that's scary.
So I mean, I know I can't speak for the future, but I would venture to say that whatever amount we decide, it's going to be a big one, and probably the next one's going to be even bigger. Again, if we don't look at the way we spent the money, that's all I'm saying. Okay.
I'm with you. You're speaking like a businessman that owns his own company.
Only been around, this ain't my first rodeo, so again, the question is that we're gonna be participating here and contributing. I just hope that staff and the city council is going to pay attention to what we're recommending here, because I don't wanna also do all this work and be involved in all of this stuff, and then we're gonna go in there and say, we're gonna spend anything you want anyway. My message to the council, as a member of this committee, is that please pay attention to what we're saying.
Yeah, and we're kind of back to where we were again to reference my time in the Charter Revision Committee. Is we wanted zero for discretionary funds, but we're kind of back to where, okay, what we gotta put something that they could possibly say yes to, because to your point, they can just take it all and just completely ignore it, but I think what we need to do, what we probably should do, is put something like, that we can live with, that they would possibly accept, instead of just saying, zero, and
With a few comments.
they're gonna do whatever they want anyway.
With a few comments.
Yeah.
This is what we suggested
Oh.
with a few comments.
I think, I'm gonna have my comments. I usually do. I'm sure Mr. Swafford's gonna have his as well, so we're not gonna be quite a bunch, which I'm encouraged by, to be honest. Okay, sorry, we're getting a little sidetracked to your point, but we got that out of the way.
Well, again, putting this up again, if we were to float a bond of, I don't know, I'm just gonna say a number of 100 million, just give out a number.
3 cents? What does that affect us? How much is that? What's the impact gonna be? 3, 4 cents?
More or
Say
less.
$100 million.
Let's just say 100 million, just to give a number.
Is that about right?
So 2.5 billion for
Is it-
1 cent.
2.5 million for 1 cent? 2.5?
That's what I get. Now, if you're getting about 100 million, I guess, during the 40 years, 5 years.
Yeah. But it can't be just, so $100 million would be,
Well, on the bonding,
yes, the bonding, yes. So we're looking at about 3 cents for $100 million. I'm speaking off of memory. Is that right?
Well, it's sort of 1 or 41 or almost 42.
it's a
5 cents is 208, basically, on this.
Okay, so yeah, we're looking at about 2.5 cents.
It's in the presentation. 1 cent is 2.4 million more or less. It generates about 41 million in bond capacity.
Okay, so we're talking about 2.5,
cents,
for 100 million, 2.5 cents
2.5 cents.
is the impact.
So so now we have 100 million.
Based on the capacity,
Correct.
I'd say a good 30% would have to go to industrial parks. And you've seen how, a lot of the new ones haven't been annexed to the city yet, but they're being built the same way as the ones we currently have. Eventually, if it ever gets annexed, which I'm sure it will, it's gonna need attention.
Agreed, the need is there. The need is definitely there, but there's
60 million, we could sub out some of it and pave it in the city, but I don't think it's, personally, I'd rather do it myself and get more done.
the residential stuff.
Yeah, it's expensive to sub out. I'm sure you all have paved, again, your parking lot. A lot of industrial parks.
And TxDOT does the maintenance thing, and for a couple of years, they'll throw the little rock thing.
Texas has
the
a
hot-
very good amount of money that they generate every year,
But see,
and
I
they
mean,
sub out 100% of it.
yeah, but like they say, the one that makes the revenue is the industrial area and not the residential. I think there should be more money allocated to the.
I don't know
So
about
the
more, but
potential
some of it
growth
needs to be
and
there. Now, I think
potential
we
growth.
just need to go again go to Washington, Austin, and fight for some of those monies like we did back in the day.
Yeah.
And maybe there is some funding out there. I don't know.
There it is. You gotta start with Austin,
Yes.
You gotta start with Austin, because the money comes from Washington, and then it comes to Texas. Texas has gotta come down to
Well, in
us.
2008 was a state.
A lot of times, Mr. Schwab is if it's not earmarked in DC, it gets to Austin, and then these other rich districts get it.
I know how that goes. I have a question. You're looking at, in this presentation that I was reading, Public Works alone is looking at 376
Yep.
million?
That's the ask.
That's the ask?
That's what this committee has been, they're calling it the Public Works Committee. It's
Well, they
all-
asked me to,
You
no,
break
they,
it down to, but you also identify 2 particular districts, District 8 and District 7, and then the rest is citywide, I guess. But you're targeting District 7 and District 8.
District 7 is where the majority of the industrial parks are, and District 8, I guess. is
8 all
old.
has everything over here, the old park
Yeah.
on River Road, which there's still some there.
Okay, so that determination was staff recommendation?
I don't know where it came from,
What,
Those are just estimates, they could go.
yeah.
I got it.
They can go down, right?
Those numbers were given, if we were to pave every single road, every street in Laredo, what would it cost?
378.
That's what the number was with today's prices. That's where that number comes from. Could we pave all of them in 1 year? There's no way in hell. Not gonna happen.
But we got a heavy task, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, yeah, it's a big ask. It's a big ask, and it's an ask that none of us are comfortable, again, to my point, not to keep beating a dead horse, but we're not comfortable selling bonds for street paving, and that's the ask, and it's also the need. So, yeah, there's going to have to be a huge compromise, and we have our work cut out for us to be able to put something together, put something forward that we're comfortable with, and delivered with the message that, you know, it's gotta change. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep living like this.
Thank you.
Any questions? More?
Questions? Any more comments?
Puro?
I'll have more for the next meeting.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
See y'all.
Okay, moving on. I don't know how John's presentations always get to be the most interesting one. How does he do it? We are moving on to item number 8, presentation by Utilities Department Downtown Infrastructure with possible action and any other matters incident thereto. Don't we have a brand new utility set, Ramon?
Yes, we do. I was gonna mention that.
Where's he at?
Good evening. He was not able to be here.
Don't say.
He felt it was short notice, but he did assure that he would be at the next meeting. Nonetheless, he did provide an exhibit, which is part of your package, with some of the information that was requested previously. Let me just see if I can. So again, good evening, Ramon Chavez, City Engineer for the record. As part of your package, you have an exhibit with some of the information that was requested to be presented. And again, they did mention that they will be here and that they will assign somebody to be here on a regular basis as coming up on the next meeting. They did provide an exhibit, which you have as part of your package, and I have it on the screen. Identifying those areas where water and sewer lines have already been replaced. So the way I read this is everywhere where you see red, within those boundaries, water and sewer have been replaced already. If you see blue, that's within the red, that means that only the water line has been replaced within those boundaries. And same for the green. So if you see green within any red, then that means that only the sewer line has.
So a lot of work has been done.
That is what I understand from this map that was provided by the Utilities Department earlier today.
Okay, well, that's good news.
Right, and so I made that, and again, all these presentations, I will send them to y'all beginning tomorrow, so that if you need to refer back and as you analyze and go through all this information, and I know it's a huge amount of information, but that way you'll have the opportunity to at least, something comes to mind, just go back and look at it if you need to.
I think that's a short presentation. I mean,
Yes, sir.
There's no, I mean, there's need, but that's not, you know.
Yes, okay, all right. Yes, and I agree,
Yeah. Questions? Comments? Yeah? Good news, all right. All right, last item number 10, presentation by Engineering Department, Traffic Division with possible action and any other matters incident thereto.
We have Mr. Albert Quintanilla, who's our Assistant Director for Traffic Safety.
Good evening, Mr. Quintanilla. Thank you for being here.
I'll be there. And traffic, what everybody loves, traffic, being caught in traffic, right? You all talked a bunch about Mines Road, and so I went through TxDOT's website, just briefly, and looked at some of the information on different roads and stuff like that. And one of the things I wanted to look at was their 100 most congested roadways. And the shocking thing that I saw was that the number 2 roadway in the state of Texas for congestion on trucks is Mines Road, right? And so the statistic that stuck out to me was this: the number of annual truck delay per mile person hours is 72,000 hours wasted or stuck on Mines Road every year, right? And what do they say about business? You all talk about business and everything else. Time is money, right? So we're wasting 72,000 hours They're out there on the traffic, on the roadway and everything else. So what does that mean? As a businessman, you're gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna spend this much time just wasting parts and everything else. We're the number one in that port right now. But if we don't do something to fix that, what's gonna happen? The trucking companies are gonna say, you know what, I'll find a faster route through somewhere else where I can not have pay for all of my truckers, all this fuel just wasting there. So we need to do something or another. And TxDOT had a presentation, long term, yeah, let's make overpasses, interstate and everything else. It's great. But what about now? What can we do right now? So we meet monthly. Our office meets monthly with the TxDOT traffic office or in our city traffic office. Discuss different projects, lights, signals, and everything else. We proposed to them, well, what can we do? They talked about synchronizing all the signals. They got a project right now where they're synchronizing all the signals, but they're using the existing systems they have now. We had told them what we need to do is improve the communications between all the signals out there. We asked for fiber optic cable to run cable from I-69 all the way out to 225, to the total, 255. Roughly costs about $2 million to run the fiber optic cable. They said it's too expensive. The delay cost per year on that wait is $10 million. And you think $2 million is too expensive to spend on fiber optic cable?
The problem is, I'm sorry, the problem is that you're asking the wrong person. If you ask us, it's
Right.
well worth the expense.
Exactly.
But
Yes, I know.
You're asking the wrong people.
Right. Exactly. What I'm saying is, the presentation needs to be made this way. That's what's one of the where we can get the best bang for our buck.
Mr. Quintanilla, have you approached the MPO?
I haven't approached the MPO on this yet because $2 million gives us the fiber optic cable, but that's just part of it. That's just the one leg of the whole system. It gives us better communication. What we want to do is update controllers as well.
Yeah, because those lights have been being synchronized since 2014, and
Right.
maybe earlier than that. But since I was in council, it was synchronized, and it still
Synchronous,
hasn't happened.
exactly. But the communication between them is by radio. And so what happens is the radio signals sometimes get lost, and there's not a consistent way to keep everything on time, the synchronization going. You get a rainstorm in, and what happens is the clocks drift, and so they're supposed to be that this light at this intersection turns green, 30 seconds later this next one turns green, but you get that drift, and it's not 30 seconds anymore, it's 45 seconds. And so this guy was going, he's gonna get the next one green, no, he's got a 15-second delay now. And you got a truck, the trucks are driving the factory, they're going slow to pick up speed and lose speed. That 15 seconds backs up traffic like you wouldn't believe.
Is there artificial intelligence in now in traffic?
There is some artificial intelligence, but it's expensive. And so what we're looking at doing is, how do you eat an elephant? You do it all at one time, you do it a bite at a time. Is if we get $4 million, we could do fiber optic cable and some of the improvements through there. One of the things is to get the clocks going all together, the fiber optic cable is a big help. Another thing we want to look for is battery backups. So if there's power outage out there and the signal goes down, we'd have the batteries to keep the signal going 6 to 8 hours. And you keep the trucks moving that way. And so we're looking for about $4 million for Mines Road alone. To keep the traffic flowing as best as we can,
Keeps running.
And the thing is, the cabinets we're looking at as well have the capability for upgrades as well. Because we just talked to a sales company about it as well. In 2020, I believe it was 2028, 2027, there's going to be federal regulation coming out. It's regulated already in the vehicles. They have to have a deal called, I believe it's EVO, where it's electronic vehicles, so that signal will actually get information from the trucks coming to it already beforehand. And so it'll know there's a convoy of 18 trucks coming. You know what? Let me adjust the time on the signal. Give it 30 more seconds green so I can get these 18 trucks through there. So they can it'll be having artificial intelligence to make sure we can get the traffic flowing a lot better. That's what we want to look for. It's what we're looking to do. We applied for a grant this past year. We haven't heard the results back yet or anything else. It was called a SMART grant for $2 million. And what we want to do is just get to research all the different equipment we could get to do all these improvements out there. And we haven't heard the response back yet. But we're still saying, well, we're not going to wait for the results of that grant. We want to do the research on our own and see what we can do to get the traffic flowing a lot better out there.
That grant still hasn't been.
We haven't heard the results back yet.
So it's still pending.
It's still pending, yes.
Hasn't been awarded.
Right.
So on a daily basis, this is a 2019 study. On a daily basis, Mines Road has more traffic than IH-35. It's 60,000 trucks, 60,000 vehicles on a daily basis on Mines Road, and 60% is trucks.
Yes.
It has more traffic than IH-35. That was a surprise to us as an RMA when we did that study.
Now, can I get to a basic question?
Yes, sir.
What is the average, how are they programmed on the lights right now on Mines Road? How are they programmed for how many seconds? And that with the turning lane, And then how is it programmed where you have ingress and ingress to the Mines Road?
Right.
In other words, let's say I've got a red light, but there's one car that wants to,
Right.
coming out of, which street do you want?
Whatever, killing,
Faster,
whatever,
you know,
yes, faster, exactly.
Okay? So
Yes.
that, because that one car was
Yes.
programmed, you still have another 90 seconds of red light.
Right. No,
Can you explain that to me?
well, what happens is we have cameras for detection, right? With the cameras, what they do,
Cameras detect the volume of traffic?
they detect a vehicle present to make it, that comes up to the intersection to stop there.
One vehicle.
One vehicle, it could be a cover.
Okay, one vehicle can reset that light
Yes.
for the maximum.
No, not for the maximum. It'll show, you know what, there's one vehicle in that deal, so it'll give you a minimum time. So it'll give them like 8 seconds for that one vehicle to go through there. But at the same time, that detection is still saying, well, you know what, there's still a queue there of vehicles, so instead of just being 8 seconds, I'll extend it out to say 30 seconds to let those vehicles go through there.
And so who's responsible for that?
We're responsible for that, but it's
So
on
how
the,
often do you review that? Because I live out there, I'll tell you right now, that ain't the case.
there is a case, but the thing is, they have drift, I tell you, and there's also
I can count
detectors.
the cars that are turning from Mines Road onto Fasgood Boulevard, and it is 6 cars,
Yes,
okay? Okay? One time.
Right.
Then it'll be maybe 2 cars,
right,
three lights later because
Yeah.
you're standing back in line. So I'm trying to determine what sets the number of vehicles that determines the time period of that light.
there's that camera detection, and then there's a default minimum time as well as a default maximum time they can go through that cycle.
Has anybody ever sat out there during peak hours, morning and the evening, and actually timed it?
The thing is,
Do any of that stuff?
yes, we do that, but we don't, some of it we have to do out in the field, because we have to check this communication system, and some of it we can do from our office. We do from our office as well, where we can monitor the signals from our office. And so you don't see somebody out there at the signal working physically, but we're still monitoring it from our office as well. And then there's times where it's a camera, but what happens with the camera? You take pictures on your daily basis and everything else, sometimes the glare is there in the camera, you don't come out there, or it's kind of foggy and whatever. And so there's sometimes where there's phases that get skipped and everything else. And that's why we want this better communication system with fiber optic cables and upgraded cameras, so that we can get rid of all those issues with creating delays.
Well, I'm just as a user out there. I've never seen anybody out there physically out there, you may have all the technology. But I'll tell you what, according to what we all agree on is that those lights are not synchronized.
Yes.
And they're not synchronized for a reason.
Yes.
Who determines the reason that they're not synchronized, and how often is that reviewed?
Well, right now, TxDOT has a project going on right now where they're doing a synchronization project. And they submitted the timings to us, and we're reviewing all the timing for all those signals. And part of it is a synchronization, so that they're all gonna turn at the right place, and then part of it is the progression to make sure the vehicles are moving. And like I said earlier, so this one turns green, and then 30 seconds later, this next one turns green, so they're moving in progression. So they're all talking to one another. And so TxDOT is working on that contract right now, but the thing is, they're supposed to have done, the work was supposed to have been completed last year, and they're talking about having it completed by December this year. And they submitted the timings to us for review because they say they don't have, the consultant doesn't have this software to review the timings.
But you're saying that the system is antiquated.
I'm saying that, not that it's antiquated, I'm saying there's room for improvements to where we can communicate a lot better and more consistently.
You can spend $50,000 in synchronizing, but some rain or lightning or something is gonna change everything again.
It
Is
can.
that what you're saying?
It can. It depends on, especially if there's a power outage or there's a lightning strike on one of our poles, those types of issues. I can give you.
To me, it sounds antiquated.
There's a lot better systems.
There's
a lot better systems out there,
there's a lot of
but
better
it costs money. It all costs money.
But you can go for grants. as
Yeah,
I
and that's what
mentioned.
we're trying to do. We're looking for grants wherever we can,
Great.
And I can tell you, our communication systems, we're all with radios. That's a good example. This past 2 weeks ago, we had a system with one of our cameras in the south that went down. And so we had to go replace the camera. Go up to the pole, the gentleman gets up there, 40 foot in the air. The bucket truck, he's got all his tools and everything else, takes a can of wasp spray. Gets up there and sprays inside because he saw a couple of wasps come out. Ends up getting over 50 bee stings. Because there's a colony of, what are they called? The killer bees inside the whole deal. So I had to spray we had to get an exterminator to come spray the whole deal and else, because you're not expecting those kind of things. But if we had the upgraded systems and everything else, we wouldn't have to send the guy up there to the top, just to clean out a camera, you know?
And the other observation I will make is that we've been averaging, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Waddell, we've been averaging about 5% growth in the volume of trucks, okay?
Yes.
How much have we spent in improving the mobility, you know, to accommodate, you know, those number of trucks on the Mines Road?
Not enough.
Well,
Because I don't have the exact
That's
number.
not an answer. That's
No,
not
it's
an
not,
answer.
but it's never enough. It's not.
So
we
again,
have-
my point that I continue to repeat is that we're not fixing it.
Nope.
We're getting more of a burden.
Right.
We're getting more of a demand on, not a burden, a demand on the use.
Right.
But we're not fixing the problem, and what are we doing? We're just creating greater chaos. And then the ones that complain are not gonna be the truck drivers.
Nope.
Because they gotta get delivered. Well, it's the cars that are trying to get to their homes with their kids, or they're trying to pick up their kids at school, or go out at night, and they're stuck in traffic.
Was there some type of communication between customs and the city of Laredo when they said, we're gonna send all the empties to Colombia? Was there some type of communication that they were gonna load some more trucks coming down?
I'm not sure how the
Mines
communication, I've been, on honesty, I've been with the city approximately 6 months.
I don't know.
So, you know, that was a little bit before my time.
Yeah,
you
never
know.
mind.
But
Where'd you come from?
City of Del Rio, but I'm
Oh, no
originally
way.
Yeah,
I got a bowling alley in Del Rio.
yes, I've been here before. I know you're bowling alleys, but
I mean, in Nyon, we just
we did it exactly right before I left. But I'm originally from Laredo, but I've lived in Laredo for the last 18 years. You know, and I retired from TxDOT here in Laredo, so approximately 13 years ago. So I know the TxDOT side of it all so as well.
All right, any questions?
We'll look forward to working with you.
Yes, and one other thing, you know, Mr. Chavez just showed the exhibit about downtown utilities and all, right? One of the projects we want to look at as well, we're looking at about $1.5 million downtown. Downtown in that whole area, we have about 50 traffic signals. But how old are those signals out there? Right? Some of them are real old. And so what happens? Okay, back 40 years ago, there's probably a lot of traffic in some of those areas of downtown. But what has happened, the businesses have closed down, there's changes in different types of business, so the traffic demand has changed, but that signal's still there. We need to go back and see, is that signal still needed, or can we yank it out of there and get rid of it? It'd be less maintenance for us to take care of, less cost, everything else. Can we just go through there with 50 signals and check the 50 signals and see how many of those signals can we take out of there and which ones can we improve to make sure we have the traffic flowing better in downtown altogether? You know?
Same thing with the parking meters. Tons of parking, when you can just put a box and you get a little paper, put it in your dashboard. And that's cheaper than maintaining all those things and having people just.
And we oversee the parking department as well. We're working on those meters as well to get them updated to where you do it all with a phone app now instead. So,
something different.
yes.
I just think that even beyond allocating additional funding for whatever we need out there, you know, you still gotta look at what's going on there. There's more and more trucks.
A lot more
There'll
trucks.
be there's more development going on up there.
Yes.
There's more warehouses coming up.
Yes.
There's more, you know, so that means more vehicles, okay? And, you know, and I just can't see them not doing anything to really mitigate, that congestion. Is gonna create any good support for any money, you know.
There's a business that says we do more.
That's right.
They need to take that and run with that.
Well, and the other thing is, you know, if you look at Mines Road as well, the majority of it's commercial traffic out there, you know, truck traffic. But what do we have out there as well? We have a couple of residential developments as well. And so that creates more of a nightmare because then you have the intermingling of trucks and residential traffic. And like you said, the ones that call with the complaints is the residential traffic, the commuter going home in the afternoons, and I'm delayed, or the one going to drop off their kid at the school and they can't get there on time because of all the trucks. And they're the ones that are calling and complaining. So if we could separate the commuter traffic from the truck traffic, it'd be a big help as well.
That's your challenge.
That's a big challenge, exactly.
That's your challenge.
Yes.
If not, it would be very easy.
It'd be
Your job
very
would
easy,
Very
right?
easy.
Yes.
Everybody would want it.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank
Do you have any other questions or
Thank
anything
you.
else you can help?
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 11, discussion with possible action on the selection of location, date, and time of the next bond referendum infrastructure subcommittee meeting
and any other matters incident thereof. There too, we had a much longer, and by the way, thank you, each and every one of you, for making the time. Those of you that left as well, for taking the time to come here and, give us your attention. I think it's probably best that we zone in on 2 or 3. There's already a motion that has passed about having text dot here at the next one, and as it pertains to 1472. I'd like to suggest having, Public Works here again, at the next meeting, John. And, is there any other one that stuck out to you, gentlemen, that we want to really zone in on? Traffic.
If I may,
Yes, of course.
you guys consider the dates, I am planning to bring the subcommittee, the groups together on November 12th. That's on a Tuesday at
Okay.
5:30, 17:30 hours.
That's 2 weeks from today.
Yes.
Yes.
So
So not that day is what you're saying?
not that date. So it would behoove if you want to meet before that time. Again, you can meet as many times as you please. So it would be a good thing if you want to meet before that and have a little bit more dialogue, so that when you do meet with the groups, then
Okay.
you know you can have these discussions.
What works for you gentlemen next week?
Wednesday?
I'm out next week.
All next week?
I won't be the week of the 18th, or that's, no, the week of it's already November, right? The week of the 11th, rather.
You're in town that week. That's when they're meeting on the 12th, so we need to meet before then.
The other one will be the 11th on Monday.
Right now, I'm assuming there's a council meeting on, I mean, we could still, well, no, but then we're gonna be pulled. Oh, it's Veterans Day. Oh, then, yeah, that's not gonna work.
What's the 12th? What's the issue of the 12th?
The large committee, is meeting the 12th, correct?
And that would be the chairs, all the chairs, and the mayor appointing.
And that's gonna be in the evening?
05, yes.
Would it be possible to meet for lunch on the 12th, guys?
Can I ask just a question, just for technical purposes? I mean, is it possible to join the meeting virtually or by phone?
We can
If
certainly
you're
make
out?
that happen. We do have the ability to do so. It will be held here at council chambers, so we do have that ability. If you
I mean,
choose
that
to.
would
Now, bear in mind,
that would be very helpful for someone like me who travels quite a bit.
right, so bear in mind who's going to be in the main committee is going to be the chairs. The rest of you can be over here, and certainly you can voice as you can come up and present if need be, to help support some of those items.
Right.
That you're gonna bring before
I
the
think
committee.
Mr. Schwebel was referring to attending this meeting.
Yeah, the subcommittee.
Oh, this subcommittee. Yeah, certainly we can make that
This
happen.
committee meeting, let's say you were able to meet next week, and I'm traveling, then I would, whatever the time schedule would be, I could accommodate my meeting to participate.
We should be able to do that.
absolutely, yeah.
It was done- It was done in COVID.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. It shouldn't be a
Okay.
problem. Mhm.
Okay, so then what works for you gentlemen next
I
week?
don't know if anybody else travels like I do, I know you do, Jerry.
We do, so I travel back Tuesday late. Late, so Wednesday will work for me in the afternoon.
Wednesday is,
Six.
that would be that's the 6th?
Yeah, next week,
Is it,
November.
yes, is the council chamber meetings available, or the council chambers available on the 6th, 5:30?
I would have to check with,
Okay, well, let's set it for 6. If we need to work around that to meet somewhere else, then that's fine. So then I would like to entertain a motion that we meet our next meeting on November 6th at 5:30, possibly in city council chambers. We already have a motion for TxDOT, also see the Director of Public Works and Mr. Quintanilla here at the next meeting.
Would it be possible to, for this purposes, I, Mr. Mendiva did a very good presentation, but I think part of it is, if Ms. Castillo from Economic Development, you guys together, we all know y'all are working on some stuff, but, I think somewhere down the line, it'd be interesting to see anyone who knows what some of these programs, I don't know, unless everybody's familiar with all the race programs or the mega programs that are out there, that I think we could leverage out some ideas.
There's so many different ones, yeah. Is CBI still there?
Yeah, CBI.
CBI as well, I mean, there's just so many of them.
Yes, again, Juan Mendive, MPO Director for the record. Yeah, the CBI program, I think, had been phased out for a while, but there are some other border infrastructure monies available. And then, yeah, there's a lot of grants on our website. We do have, a matrix that we're using from another website that has all of the grants on there. So we do communicate that with Miriam a lot. So we do have the communication with them. We could do a presentation. I don't know if it would serve you all well for the purpose of this, but.
So remind me, Ramon, we have to put something forward by June, is that right?
Correct. Well, before that,
No, March. I think it's March, actually.
I thought it was the end of the year.
No, because June is when it's gonna be May. May is gonna be the election.
all right, so, final review and approval of the bond package recommendations by the full committee, February 2025.
So then subcommittee by the end of the year,
Subcommittee by the end.
Yeah.
Committee meeting commence, discuss.
maybe the first week of July,
It's
January.
on there, do you have a reminder?
There's so many tabs here, man.
Subcommittee work is supposed to be by the end of the year, and then
Oh, there's timetable,
CMO, on the CMO tab, if you go to the CMO tab,
okay.
and then within that timeline, look for the slide that says timeline. I'm gonna need a binder, first.
Yes, I will get you one, right.
Okay, October, November, subgroups, subgroups, public, so. Yeah, so you're right, we have next month.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, well, okay.
It should be on the
Yeah, no,
screen.
I-
see it.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, I'll try to be here for all the meetings, so we, any questions for the MPO, you'll be here.
Yeah, that would be great. We're probably gonna have to run and gun and multitask, if you will. I kinda wanted to just focus in on those three departments and then have another meeting for, again, cause we're probably gonna have a very small number that we're gonna present with adding in some other creative ways to find, and that's where you and the Economic Development Committee are gonna come in. But yeah, we're probably gonna have to multitask. I would think.
And if you need anything from TechStop, if you need anything, we can even bring, I know we have local, but TechStop, I see these presentations. I've got a meeting actually, I'll be in Austin, and these folks, we go to the whole run from all the CAP money to what other cities are doing, and I just see all these cities say, got a raise grant here, got this grant there, got FPO money here, got RMA money here. And I see everybody out there doing it, and I get upset because why aren't we doing it here? And we're going out there doing this kind of stuff we're being asked to do right now. So if we need to get an understanding, at least educate, the public, and hopefully help you all as well, because I can pitch it in Austin, but at the same time, you gotta ask for it here.
So I would certainly highly recommend that establish the wants, prioritize them, and then let's go after the funding. We can have that discussion, but it's important that we stay within the objectives of this committee, and go ahead and sort out the wants, prioritize them, and then we'll go after that. So.
Sounds right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, if I can,
Chavez.
I know we're requesting TxDOT, Public Works, and Traffic. So for TxDOT, I understand we want to look at understanding the process and also what developments in the next 5 years. So that's clear. Public Works, anything specific, or you just want more information from John?
We'd like to see more. It's a really big number. $378 million. Have more of a realistic number from John as to what
That breakdown for that, just for that alone.
Yeah, so okay, industrial parks, this much, what specific industrial parks, how much is it gonna be, residential, all that, just something a little bit more realistic and more surgical, if you will, so that we can really, because that's just a big ask.
And then Traffic
Traffic,
from Mr. Quintanilla.
$4 million ask, I think it sounds, I guess one of the most reasonable ones, but.
yeah, I think traffic, more about this upgrade for this fiber optic and any other viable quick fixes
to fix the problem over there, I think 1472 specifically.
Yep.
At some point, are we gonna be, is this committee going to be addressing the water infrastructure? Yes, also.
That's, it, because it has its own revenue, we're dealing with just, COs. We're not dealing with any, we're not getting into the enterprise funds. Yeah, but we had the utility in here just because we wanted to get an idea of what was laying underneath us as it pertains to the downtown. But the reality is there's nothing we can do about that. But, I mean, that doesn't stop us from sending them another message when we present. So is that it, gentlemen?
Be careful when you ask.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? The motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. Thank you very much, gentlemen.